Yes, I need to declare an interest in the Llanbottling catchment review.
Thank you, Catherine. Catherine, I believe that will require you to leave the meeting.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Okay, then, and then we'll contact you when that item of the agenda is over. Are there any other declarations or disclosures or declarations that anybody wishes to make or would like any advice on? No. Similarly, declarations of party whip. Anybody, anything to declare there at item 3? That takes us item 4 on the agenda, which I've already informed you that will be taken later in the meeting. Item 5 on the agenda will be taken later in the meeting, and we go to schools transformation. Catherine, this is an opportunity to declare once again and leave the meeting.
Thank you. Yes, I declare that. I believe Kath's going to put me in the lobby.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Catherine. Members, I'm in your hands. We have a school transformation document, and it's labelled Llanbottling North Wales Catchment Review. There's 3 different appendixes in it. Literally, how do you wish to do this? Do you wish to take it en bloc, or do you wish to deal with it individually? En bloc is the suggestion, because I think there's relevant comments. Going through the document, we need to pick up on individuals as we go through. Marianne, Councillor Pete, you wish to say anything on this before we ask Marianne to introduce?
I'll open up with the context and then pass across to Marianne for the detail. The Llanbottling North Wales School Catchment Review is the first substantive piece of work in wave 2 of the schools transformation programme that have been scheduled. This follows a similar catchment review in the Crickhowell area, which was taken as an opportunity whilst the judicial reviews were being completed for Llanbedr. This catchment review has been undertaken by officers undertaking a desktop analysis, coming up with a way forward, which have then been taken out into the community with a meeting of school governors and a meeting of teachers within the schools directly impacted. Following on from that meeting, a series of meetings on a individual school basis were held by Marianne and myself, with visits to the individual schools through the months of June into July. As a result of that, there were a number of small modifications made to the original proposals, and these are the matters that are in front of you now. This is actually quite a complex catchment, in so much as it has a Welsh medium school, a number of dual stream schools, and a number of schools both under the voluntary aided and county primary level. So pulling together a whole catchment analysis has been quite a challenge. It's also set against a backdrop of falling populations in school age, a number of schools with very significant levels of spare places within them, and I say significant in the context of the school code. The demographics of this area have been significantly affected over the past 15 to 20 years by planning policy, with a number of areas having very limited development as a result of the way local plans have developed since really the 1990s onwards. And that is a factor that we're now looking at. It's also been taken in the context of growing demands on head teachers as a result of changes coming in from the ALN Act, and a number of SDIM reports highlighting leadership and breadth of curriculum offer in some of the smallest schools. And I don't mean just in Powys, but this has been picked up elsewhere in the country. So with that context, we now have a set of proposals in front of us, prepared by officers with input from the community and with input from myself as portfolio holder, with the suggestions of a way forward. During the discussions with individual schools, there were a number of issues raised, many of which are likely to come forward today, and many of which will be areas for discussion if these proposals move forward during the consultation phase and any objection report. What I would say is that all of those discussions have merit, but in the time frame that was available within the review, they hadn't reached a point where officers and I felt they were offered a comprehensive and sustainable argument. There is obviously an opportunity, if these proposals move forward, for those to be developed further and come forward as clear and distinct proposals as to why the preferred way forward that is being put forward today is not the best way forward for the catchment. And I and my cabinet colleagues will welcome those discussions as it comes forward at those two formal stages. So I'm now going to pass over to Marianne to go through these proposals in more detail. And then obviously, Chair, invite you and colleagues to put questions.
Thank you, Councillor Pete. Marianne, I'm just going to ask you to hold back a little bit. Councillor Pete, you've raised some issues which I'm just going to open it up into the floor now that for members to ask some questions first. I will prompt them questions to start off with. You spoke about the process, and you actually identified that there wasn't the time frame didn't allow you to address some of those issues. It's been quite difficult for us, for those of us who are local members, that these issues have gone into the domain. Schools, parents, children, staff are now are uncomfortable with the proposals and are coming to local members, as they should, and raising them questions. But they're raising those questions. Their viewpoint is that things are too late, and even to the point that I've made a local member comment that I hadn't had an opportunity to speak with schools because I didn't know the detail of the proposals. I haven't had that opportunity to go to my local schools and say, well, what do you think of the proposals? But I acknowledge that you're saying that, yeah, you're going to listen in cabinet, but we do have a bunch of proposals which rightly or wrongly are worrying people at the moment. And I can't recollect how Scrutiny has dealt with this in the past, but it seems to be that we're dealing with it after. It's just my thoughts, whether I'm right or wrong. But I think that's a view which has been expressed by a few of us around the table in the pre-meeting. And we're not totally happy with the process at this stage. But yes, we have to move on with that process, but we're not very happy with the position which we're in. Just to give you details, some local members have said that they haven't had any correspondence with people or had any conversations. We've got two trying to submit information today. They've had no conversations, and that's worrying.
Thank you for that, Gwynfor. Actually, this is significantly earlier in the process than Scrutiny have dealt with this previously. One of the recommendations that came out of the audit report into Callum Cymru and how that was transformed in 2016 was that there was insufficient scrutiny engagement at that point. And during the last administration, the focus on scrutiny was very much at the end of the process, at the objection report stage, where scrutiny was looking at the final stage of the process. That's why I asked you to accept this proposal for scrutiny at this point, to enable scrutiny to look at the details of the business case, the rationale behind changes, and the detail before we went out to statutory consultation, so that there was actually an opportunity for scrutiny to input into the decision-making process about whether we would actually go out to consultation or not. In that sense, it was bringing in a wider knowledge pool than just the work that I'm doing to question and challenge the officers on the merits of the proposals that they are recommending to myself and Cabinet to move forward with. In terms of local member involvement, I'm sure you will correct me if I'm wrong because so many things have happened, but I believe local members were invited to the discussion session at Llanfyllin, primarily because most of them were governors in schools that were impacted. And I know a number of them, yourself included, Chair, were actually present at that meeting when the first stage of thought around this catchment was shared. So there has been a period there in which there's been opportunity for schools, their governing body, to discuss what has been put forward and have ideas formulated.
That's fine, Councillor Pete. But let's not hide away from the fact that local members didn't have sight of the proposals until last week, and that was in the intervention of Mr. Clyde Penny, who was quite surprised that we hadn't been involved. And secondly, from a scrutiny point of view, there is no local member comment for us to scrutinise today or take on board. That's not available for us because the closing date for that local member involvement was today. So, and as I said, there's local members that haven't had any consultation whatsoever, and they have requested to speak today, which I've accepted. So that doesn't hide that away. Members, is there anything else that you wish to address Councillor Pete with at this point before we go to Marianne? Aled, is there?
Just very quickly. The beginning of the report talks about the process restarting in April. Llanfyllin North Welsh Pool catchments, which restarted in April 2023. When was it stopped? And also, could you just, perhaps this is the wrong time to ask this, but just outline the differences. You know, with the previous papers, there were papers going back 3 years at least on this, and what's happened in the intervening time. Thank you.
The previous set of papers were published in October 2020 when a business case was brought forward. The previous administration brought forward a number of school modification orders in that time, but the research work based on the business case found that the original proposals for the Ysgol Pennant, Llanrheadr and Mockland area and the transformation and build programme in the Llansanfraid area were not possible to deliver or not desirable to deliver. The original proposals for Broken Life were brought forward, but officer time was not sufficient for those proposals to be implemented in terms of bringing them out to statutory orders prior to the all-up council elections in 2022. In the intervening time, there were a number of other transformation pieces of work undertaken, and the catchment review in this case started as soon as officer time was available to move that forward as a substantial measure, which was April of this year.
I do remember work done by a senior officer who has part of her work is to oversee the education service. That's this catchment in the very north was really at the top of the priority list for to be reviewed, to be transformed, or however you wish to describe it. Why was a Crickhowell review pushed in ahead of us?
The Crickhowell review was pushed in ahead of this because the Llanbedr site was under judicial review at that point, and but
that was at the bottom of the list for from a priority point of view of the council. That catchment was at the very bottom of the
and there
list.
was a proposition brought forward that there may be the opportunity to merge the high school and the primary school to create an all-through school, which was an opportunity that came about by the fact that both schools were without a head teacher at that point. Therefore, that was brought forward as an opportunity to move the transformation and establish a settled position in Crickhowell at that time. Therefore, those two opportunity elements, just as Brokerinion is something that has come forward as an opportunity, were prioritised first.
Thank you, Councillor Lee. Anything else at this stage? Anything else at this stage? Prynhawn da, Marianne, croeso.
Now that. Okay, what we have here today is a revised preferred way forward, or an updated preferred way forward. Councillor Aled, you did mention there was a previous version of this, and that has been the starting point for our discussions since we restarted the review in the spring. What we have here is a complex catchment, as Councillor Peake said, and a significant amount of interdependencies between schools, and which we've tried to unpick and work out the best way to do this. So what we're presenting today is actually a long-term, it's a 10-year plan of transformation in the catchment. And the reason we have a 10-year plan is because certain things have to happen in sequence, because there could be then an impact on what's left in terms of the number of schools or the type of schools. So we've also included capital investment in the plan as previous, and we know the situation with capital funding at the moment, with funding generally. So that's a longer term ambition. But just to quickly run through the recommendations, so we've got those on record. It is recommended that Cabinet approves the following. That the Council's indicative preferred way forward for schools in the area is as follows. So for the group of schools, Llangedwin, Llanfechine and Llansamfraid, to close Llangedwin Church in Wales School, pupils to transfer to Llanfechine Church in Wales School. To then explore with Llansamfraid Church in Wales School and Llanfechine Church in Wales Schools the possibility of establishing a school on two sites, with a view to providing a new building for those schools at a later point. So for Ysgol Bro Cynllaeth, Ysgol Pennant and Ysgol Llanrhaeadr y Mochnant, a group of schools, Ysgol Pennant and Ysgol Llanrhaeadr to continue to operate as standalone schools, but we also wish to support Llanrhaeadr to move along the language continuum, and then to consider bringing those schools together when appropriate on two sites, but also to close Ysgol Bro Cynllaeth with post-based pupils to transfer to Ysgol Llanrhaeadr. We would also enable, we would also provide the immersion support, the Trochi Welsh Medium intensive support as well, if pupils wanted to transfer to the Welsh stream. For Bryn Hafren, Ardlyn, Carrighofa and Llandyssilio, for those group of schools, to close Bryn Hafren CP school, pupils to transfer to the nearest alternative schools in Powys. And then to explore with Ardlyn, Carrighofa and Llandyssilio the possibility of establishing a new multi-sited school in that area, with the potential of a new build at a later stage. But also in that area to explore the possibility of establishing Welsh medium, early years and primary provision. And then last, for Ysgol Llanfechlin and Ysgol Meifod, to provide a new community campus for pupils in Llanfechlin, replacing the current Ysgol Llanfechlin buildings, and to support Llanfechlin to move along the language continuum as well in the primary sector, and then for Ysgol Meifod, options for Ysgol Meifod to be considered alongside any developments in Llanfechlin. So those are the summary of the preferred way forward. So the recommendation then goes on to ask for approval to bring back proposal papers in respect of Llangedwin Church in Wales School and Bryn Hafren Church in Wales County Primary School in October, and then to bring back a proposal paper in respect of Ysgol Bro Cynllaeth early in 2024. So there's a phase into all of this. And then to last recommendation, to undertake further activity to implement the indicative preferred way forward in accordance with the timeline outlined in 2.33 in the paper. Gives you an overall summary of the preferred way forward.
Diolch, Marianne. Members, comments, questions? Councillor Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. One of the first, I've got a number of points that I'd like to make, but one of the first points was that it seems to me that it looks as though we're taking the easy fix here for knocking the small schools off and taking those out before making changes to the rest of the catchment. So I had understood that the reason for looking at the catchment as a whole was that we could ensure that changes happened as one, and that there wasn't a risk that children would move from one school and then, although not necessarily move to another site, they might move to a school that then becomes part of a bigger school. So I think we should really be considering that these changes, if they're going to happen, should happen as one. It would save moves for pupils, changes of uniform, just a lot of stress, because otherwise some of these pupils won't know for some considerable time where their kind of end destination will be.
Can you give an example of that, Councillor Lucy?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, in terms of Bryn Havran School, which is obviously my local school, you'd potentially have pupils moving from Bryn Havran to Llansilio School. I mean, the paper doesn't state which school that they would move to, but the other closest school, Ardleen, is already full. So if pupils move to Llansilio, and then Llansilio, Ardleen and Carrigover merge to form one school, there would be further change, and then at some point in the future there would be a new building for those three schools, and that would be another change again. And
I would suggest that's got a certain relevance to other schools in the catchment as well.
That would be the same for Llangedwin and Brighton. Yeah.
Does somebody want to address that point first before Lucy moves on?
Yeah, I'll come in there. If we could transform all of the catchment in one single plan, that would be difficult. There are certain things that we have to do, and we need to factor in the fact that we have these three small schools in catchment, and we are proposing closure. We do need to know where those pupils will go to, which schools they will go to, what the impact will be, before we move on into the medium-term discussions around other schools. Capital investment, it will take a long time to see through the capital investment. So plan is the capital investment or new builds happen at the latter part of the 10-year plan. So pupils in current schools that we are proposing to close shouldn't be affected by that. It is challenging. There are all kinds of factors that we need to take into account, such as the availability of Church and Wales places, etc. The discussion or the exploring of options around Ardleen, Carrigover and Llansilio. There is another issue there in terms of the fact that Llansilio is the Church and Wales school and the other two are community schools, plus the fact that they are in different high school catchments. So we acknowledge there are a lot of exploration needed with those three schools before we can get to any end result there. I take your point about it, but it is a complex catchment, and we do need to make sure that it stays. And we also need to address where the issues are, where the challenges really are first, before we then move forward.
Can I keep going?
Yeah, go on, Councillor.
Okay, thank you. And inevitably I'm concentrating on that area of the catchment, but can you clarify for me please whether the numbers, the future numbers that are stated in the document include those from the new buildings, or is that just on live birth?
The pupil projections and documents are on live birth data.
Okay, so it seems to me, doing a quick calculation, that if you look at the live birth data and you add to that the projections from buildings, the projected number of pupils coming in from new build in the area, that actually exceeds the number of spaces available if Bryn Haven isn't part of that equation. And the projected 320 places for a new school might well not be enough.
We're aware of the housing developments or the planned and proposed housing developments in the area, and that's why we mustn't rush to progress with a new build until we have realised or seen the outcome of these housing developments. So we are aware of that. Hence, again, the need for a 10-year plan.
I think it's worth mentioning the 2 points Councillor Lucy has just raised. I think are very relevant to the Lansdowne Pride, Llangedwin, Llanfechline proposal as well. Both points actually fit into that proposal as well. I'm not sure with Pan and Llanrydder if that is the case as well, but there's a suggestion that Ascot Broke Unlight there won't be surplus spaces if that is taken up in that area. I don't know. I'm prompting comment, but it's certainly the case in the Lansdowne Pride, Llanfechline, Llangedwin area.
Yes, can I I'm mute. Just coming very quickly on the capital issue about
That's another issue, Alice.
Yeah, no, it was in response to the first answer. Sorry.
Okay, go on then. Are you happy with that, Lucy? Brent, go on. Go on then.
Previous plans, I know they go back a few years, but spades were supposed to be in the ground this September in Llanfechline catchment. And I was just wondering why Councillor Roberts has taken out all reference or any timeline around capital expenditure. It might be 10 years, but it's important that you know the timeline people are working to when that investment will be made. It's far easier to take a community with you when there's change, when there's clear plans and clear commitments to investment going forward. You know, there's examples of a school being closed and pupils moving to a school that has condition grade C. Is that acceptable? Capital investment and reform should go hand in hand and not close the schools and then have a think about what capital investments or new schools we're going to build. So the question to Councillor Roberts is, why did you remove those timelines from the original plan?
The original plan you referenced, and I look back on this because you mentioned it yesterday in Cabinet, so I wanted to be sure I could give you an accurate answer on this. The original proposal came forward in October 2020 with an indicative timeline, and that was based on the programme being accepted within Band B of the then 21st Century Schools programme. At the time, because largely due to delays caused at the two Welshpool schools and Roehampton by the collapse of Dormus, our expenditure on committed capital in that programme band had not exceeded the 80% mark. So we were unable as an authority to advance those projects forward within Band B. This proposal will now bring forward the recommitment to those two projects, Llanfechline and Lansdowne Pride, and with the opening up of the Sustainable Communities for Learning 9-year plan in January, we would be looking as part of our submission to include those within this programme. There's no distinct timeline on them at this stage because the view taken by officers was that it was important for us to get this stage of the programme through and then come forward with a new outline business case upon which that submission will be based. So we don't have a direct timeline because we are still trapped in that position where we have to get through the expenditure that is already committed before more will be able to be drawn down. I'm sure Marianne will correct me if I've got anything wrong there.
No, that was exactly correct, Councillor Pete. So the Welsh Government's next round of funding, we are required to provide submit a new programme by March of next year, and it is a 9-year rolling programme, which is a new thing for the Welsh Government, who've been working in 5-year bands. So what they're expecting from us are in years 1, 2 and 3 projects that are expected to reach full business case within 3 years. Then years 4, 5 and 6 projects being developed and going through the statutory consultation, and years 7, 8 and 9 pipeline projects. So I would see the capital investment in the Llangollen area being either years 4, 5 and 6 or the later round of funding. Local authorities are then expected to review their programme every 3 years as projects move up the list. I hope that clarifies that.
And was a conscious decision not to publish that in this paper? It could be easily done to give assurance to communities that there's a clear, strong pathway for that new investment.
I think it's in the papers, Aled. If not, we will make sure that it's noted in Cabinet.
Thank you, Marianne. I thought I'd been through the papers quite comprehensively and I hadn't seen it. So yeah, if that can be an addition, that would be very grateful. I'm sorry to jump on Aled and Lucy here, but I will make the comment as regards the capital expenditure. I appreciate what you're saying about Ysgol Llangollen, but obviously the paper speaks about new builds in Llansamfraid, Llanbechan area and also Carreg over Llandysylio area. I would suggest at this stage that it's it, and I find that a little bit of a desperate situation because you know, we're closing schools, and Aled's point of trying to take communities with us is a very relevant point, because you've got to find sites in those areas first, and that puts a massive if to this concept. So I would just add that at this stage. Aled, have you got anything further to say, or I'm going back to Lucy?
Bits and pieces, but yeah, sorry, I interrupted Lucy earlier.
Bryn, I acknowledge that you've got your hand up, but I'd like to finish with Lucy as well, please.
If I can raise one more point for now, I've got other things perhaps for the future, but this is something else that's relevant to other schools as well, which is when you look at the financial assessment, the document doesn't show any cost saving for merging Bryn Haven or any of the other small schools with neighbouring schools. So for instance, if Bryn Haven and Llandysylio were to become one school, there's no cost saving shown. And so if that's the case, then why are we looking at merging Carreg over, Llandysylio and Ardlean, and the same would be in other catchments? What's the benefit if there's no cost saving? Thank you.
I'm looking at you now, Marianne.
Yeah, I know. The cost saving relates to the closure of Bryn Haven. So the costs have been calculated on the closure proposals. So we're not talking about merging Llandysylio and Bryn Haven. We're talking about today about the closure of Bryn Haven. So when we go forward to explore options around Ardlean, Carreg over and Llandysylio, we will then have to understand what can be achieved there, what the model will look like, and cost that up at that time. But as I said, that is the next step. So I hope, does that clarify?
Not really, because you could have a situation where if there's no cost benefit in Bryn Haven merging with another school other than the site itself, until you do the maths for merging the other 3 schools together, you may find that there's no cost benefit in that either. So, you know, it's another case, really, you need to do all the work on those 4 schools together before you make decisions about one single school. Because there are elements, as Wim was pointed out, or I think Aled pointed out, in this case, you would be moving children from a band B school to a band C school in terms of the condition of the school. and the amount of money that needs to be spent to keep that school open.
Okay. I think there's a number of issues, isn't there? I can see Geordie going to come in as well, but it's a balance. So it's a balance between the small schools, what they can offer, learner entitlement, and Georgie will probably come in here as well. So we need to look at, as I said before, where the main challenges are at the moment in the Llambelling catchment. The council is under significant financial pressure. We've acknowledged in the strategy going back to 2020, and it's still live, that we have too many small schools in the county. So we do have to take action where the main challenges are first. But I take your point about the overall, and that will be costed as we go forward. And there could be a number of options around Ardlyn, Carrickhoven, Llandyssilio, and there could be difficulties that we can't see yet that may mean that they cannot come together as multi-sites. So that's why we need to address what the problem is as we currently have it in the catchment. Georgie, I don't know whether you want to come in there.
Yeah, come on, Katrina.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you, Chair. Just to reiterate, really, that this isn't about financial savings necessarily. This is about the learner entitlement and equity within the Cumbuckling area. It's one of the things we talked about when we came and met with councillors, chairs of governors, and the staff at those schools. I think it's really, really important from the things we've particularly seen more recently, that we've got the issues around the surplus places, which is a cost implication for us as an LA, but also the workload on staff and leaders regarding the smaller schools and trying to deliver and lead on all the different areas of the curriculum. There is value as well in the economies of scale regarding learner well-being, emotional support, and as well those additional ALM pressures that we're experiencing within the system, again, not just within Powys, but nationally. So it isn't just a cost-saving exercise. It's really, really important that it's about those learners and that entitlement and the equity across the area because of the different sizes and the different opportunities that are being provided by this model currently.
I think you're absolutely right, Georgie, but I think Lucy makes an important point. You know, we do have to look at the financial aspects of any changes, and she's made that point. So it may be not all about finance, but finance is an important contribution to that. We're going to Councillor Bryn now. Members, we believe we've got a translation system in place today. I really do hope for Bryn that it does work, because we try so very hard to accommodate Bryn in his desire to speak Welsh, but we fail so many times. So fingers crossed. I'm told we don't have to do anything. So Bryn, if you'd give us a little test, we'll test the system.
Hello.
I think we're in business, Bryn.
Iawn. Ella bod chi mewn busnes, ond dydy'r noise cancellation ddim yn gweithio ar hyn o gwbl, so dwi'n clywed pob peth tair gwaith. Ta waith. Dydy, rhywbeth dydy Cynghorydd Lucy heb godi, ydy bod dwi'n meddwl eitha siŵr bod yna cylch TF yn bodoli yn Bryn Hafren yn yr ardal, ond beth bynnag am hynny, does dim dilyniant iddo, a mae angen i ddatblygu darpariaeth cyfrwng Cymraeg yn ardal Ardlyn, Carrickhoven, Llandyssilio ac yn blaen, ac hefyd yn ardal Llansamffraid, Llanfechen. Dwi'n siŵr os nhw'n dau ddarpariaeth ar wahân, ond oes na sicrwydd bod hynny'n mynd i ddigwydd gyda'r cynigion sy'n ger y bron ni.
Oes.
I hate to inform you, Bryn, but we really struggled with that in the chamber. But I believe that it may have been picked up online. Okay. So, do you want me to translate? I think we'll just go with Marianne's answer, if that's okay.
Do you know what she said? Do you know what she was just saying yes to?
Oh, right. Okay. I hadn't required that she'd respond in. I really do apologise, Bryn, but yeah, you're going to have to update us otherwise.
Yeah.
The point, how do I stop this echoing?
Hello. Point was, I think there is TFE provision in the
has been around Bryn Hafren, perhaps not. Llandriniaeth. So, okay, but there's no continuation of that provision in the area. So I was just seeking confirmation that Welsh medium provision will definitely be provided within that group of 4, and also within the Llansan Praid Llanfechain group of 2. So I was just seeking confirmation that is definitely part of the plan.
Okay, and Marianne has confirmed that.
Yeah, can I just come in there as well? Just to say, yes, you're right, there is a TMV in the area. There is no follow-on into early years, Cilch or primary provision. And we have recommended in the paper that we explore options to develop Welsh medium provision in the area. So that has to be part of the discussion as well. In the did you mention Llansan Praid and Llanfechain? We haven't included anything around improving Welsh medium provision there in this paper, but that doesn't mean to say that we cannot have those discussions as we go forward with Llansan Praid and Llanfechain.
Okay, can I just follow on? It's just I think it's particular relevance to remarks or commitments made recently to give the opportunity to Welsh speakers or those who desire Welsh medium education from Shropshire. Perhaps Pete might want to expand on that.
Councillor Peters indicating, so it might be an opportune time to come in.
I'm happy to expand on that. It was the provision that we are looking at exploring here that was very much at the forefront of my mind. Oswestry, in terms of distance from Oswestry to what we're terming the 483 corridor school, is no greater than we have some children travelling to Welsh medium education at the moment. Likewise, I know one of the options coming forward, probably during the consultation phase, if the Road Cynllaeth proposal goes forward, would be to exploit a similar opportunity at that school. So it's very much in my mind that there is a site in that northeast corner where we do need to bring forward Welsh medium provision in some shape, but there are too many things to be discussed at this point to actually bring forward a firm proposal at the moment, other than to say we want to actively develop the Cilch and TRV provision in that area to provide a way forward and provide a community of pupils that will be seeking that education. So yes, very strong commitment to move that forward, as there has been in all of the things that I have tried to do within transformation, even if some of them have proved contrary to the West but have not been successful.
Okay, so
Can I just expand on that slightly? I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand. There's a strong commitment to support the Welsh children in Shropshire to receive a Welsh medium education to be funded by Powys County Council.
Apologies. This is very early stages in terms of looking at exploring the opportunities that the Marches Partnership will offer. There is already cross-border transfer of pupils between Wales and Powys and Shropshire, and there is now an opportunity to have a much more full discussion about how that is managed, with a view to have some coming back the other way.
There's always been transfer of pupils across the borders from Rhywlas all the way down to not Crickhole, Hay-on-Wye, I guess. But isn't it a bit previous for you to be potentially highlighting this at this point in time, where there's absolutely no formal plans to do anything? The only formal plan we see within this report, it will do great damage to the Welsh language right on the border. There's potentially schools closing on the border, and their nearest schools will be in Oswestry or nearby villages. Can you confirm that Powys will have to transport those children from Powys to their nearest school in Shropshire, should they wish to go?
That's down to the definition of a suitable school.
You know, no, it's the nearest
schools
school.
don't provide suitable education for children in Wales from a language point of view. And I think
I'm sorry, Bryn, but leave Councillor Roberts' answer.
Okay, I think that's relevant. Councillor Pate, would you like to, this border school situation, Brokenlythe and Bryn Havering, a strong possibility that we will lose people out of the authority, a certain assumption that, and again, the report admits that we're not sure where them pupils will go. Address Ali's point and the closure of border schools, please.
In respect to Brokenlythe, it's quite simple. We are naming Llanrydder as the receiving school. That's a quite straightforward statement, and there are legal implications that run through it. I'm sure that Marianne will explain them.
But if a child wishes to go to their nearest suitable school, and that school is in Shropshire, would Powys have to pay that transport?
Again, Marianne will correct me if I'm wrong, but by naming a particular school, that is the nearest suitable school. Anything else is parental choice.
I'd be grateful for clarification. I'd be grateful for clarification on that, because my understanding is that Bryn Havering pupils are already saying that they will go to an English school, and I think Brokenlythe are saying that they will go to Trevanion school. Is definite clarification that we wouldn't be paying for those pupils to travel across the border.
I'll come in. We can clarify that. Okay. We'll come back to you with a clarification.
I'm sorry, but Councillor Pete, you confused me, not confused the issue. You confused me before about pupils that are travelling to the marches. Are we currently paying school transport for people to go to the marches school?
We currently provide home to school transport in accordance with a policy which provides, if you're eligible for free home to school transport, it's to your closest or catchment school. In the case of a named receiving school, we have in the past provided transport to a named receiving school, even if it's not their closest school, for the period of time that for the current pupils in that closing school. So that's something we would wish to do. We wish to keep all pupils possible in Powys and have that entitlement to the Welsh curriculum and the Welsh language. So we will, that's why we're naming Llanrydder, and that's why we're saying Bryn Haveren to alternative schools in Powys.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
I really do think the officers and Councillor Roberts knows the answer. Keep it simple. If I had a child going to primary school, Llanarmon Dyffryn Ceiriog School is 2.5 miles away. Llanrydder is almost 10 miles away. If I wanted my child to go to Llanarmon Dyffryn Ceiriog School, or Glyn Ceiriog School, or Oswestry School, which are all closer than Llanrydder School, would Powys have to pay the transport?
In the catchment. This is why.
No. Okay, just to intervene, there's certainly a bit of confusion here, but whatever the proposals are must be aligned with the school transport policy. So that's an important comment that we're making out of the scrutiny committee today. There's certainly confusion in the room, certainly disagreement in the room, and we're not provided with any answers. So that's an important recommendation which will come out of our meeting today. Aled, I can only make the comment which I've made. Yeah. Good. Anything else about border schools before we move back to some members that have got some further comment as well? No, have we covered border schools?
Just very quickly, the previous cabinet commissioned a paper or report to see understand the impact of the border on Welsh medium education, the cross-border, you know, all these issues that we're discussing. Has that report been finalised and published? It'd be good to see it.
I commend that. We didn't carry on with that review of border schools. It was decided that we would consider the border issues every time we looked at a catchment or a school that was on the border, this is what we're doing here now.
When was that decision not to go ahead with the report taken?
I'm not sure when the decision was, Councillor Aled, but it was definitely part of sort of the discussions going forward from previous, and also linked to the workload that the team had at the time as well.
Thank you, Marianne. I'm conscious of the fact in the chair today that a certain amount of school transformation has already taken place. And I think we have to point out as a scrutiny committee that there has to be consistency right through the transformation programme. I would be interested to revisit decisions which have been made on previous border schools to see that if we're consistent with that now. And I don't want to reignite another debate, but I would like to see us consistent in our policy that we treat all these border schools the same. So another point that we should make. Yeah, go on, Councillor Lucy.
Thank you, Chair. Just again on Bryn Haven and language. Bryn Haven at the moment, I have a Welsh-speaking teacher. They very much increased the amount of Welsh that they're using in the schools. All the pupils are joining the ERB this year. There's a very strong Welsh language connection, and yet many of those pupils will move over the border to English schools if Bryn Haven closes. But most of the parents work in Shropshire, and it's much easier for them to drop their kids off in schools over the border than it is for them to go in the opposite direction to drop their children in the Four Crosses area. So that's just a further point I'd like to make on the language. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lucy. It does express the problems we do have with schools which are situated so close to the Shropshire border or English border. Councillor Pate, you indicating?
That was an old indication. That was an old indication that I forgot, Mr. Luff. It's in response to Councillor Lucy's comments about finance. And if you look in the main catchment review document rather than the report, there is a lot more information in there about the financial implications of particular proposals.
Members, I'm looking for further comments. Thank you, Councillor Pate. I'm looking for further comment.
Can I just I know some people can't be in the meeting today, and there was certainly comments at the consultation about what I term as classrooms in the countryside, about potential of small schools coming under the management of a larger school, and they are not reflected in the report generated. Have you dismissed that suggestion, Councillor Roberts?
No, that is one of the that is a classic example of one of the things that I was alluding to, where there were options that emerged during the discussion with the schools concerned, where there was a proposal being talked about, but it hadn't been fully quantified and brought forward for us to evaluate. And I would expect schools that are looking at that option as part of the engagement, the consultation exercise, to bring those proposals forward to be evaluated in more detail.
But certainly officers would know about the desire for that to happen. I was just surprised that it wasn't considered as one of the options within this report, because it's, you know, you do not go back to square one all the time. You want to build on progress previously made, and that was certainly a suggestion that's been made in the past. also made at the consultation, but yet it doesn't appear in this report.
And if I could add to that, Georgie's comment about learner entitlement and the fact that this isn't all surrounding finance. Certainly, I like the terminology, classrooms in the countryside, but that would certainly add to the entitlement of them smaller schools. Yeah, it's a consideration which we'd like to see considered.
It's, Councillor Goodboy, it's the learner entitlement element that was the area that needed further exploration, which is, and at this stage, the information that had been brought forward wasn't sufficient for officers to have confidence that that offer would give a similar learner entitlement to the proposals brought forward. As I said at the outset, this is a start point. There is a consultation process where a lot more detail and more discussion for these ideas, that many of which were raised after the initial papers were brought forward, but haven't had sufficient time to be fleshed out. And I'm knowing some of the people that have raised these ideas, I'm sure they've been working on them in the intervening time. I look forward to hearing from them during the consultation phase before we end up making final decisions on this, assuming Cabinet moves forward next week with these proposals.
Just very quickly, Chair.
Yeah, well, carry on, Alan.
You would have thought you'd at the start of the process you'd put everything in and whittle them down, rather than start with something and possibly add something in later. But that's interesting way of doing things. Can I just touch on the maintenance backlog? We did talk about a school in potential school receiving school in Class C condition, maintenance backlog of 400k. The ideally, according to the paper, the children would transfer there in 12 months' time. Would that backlog work to rectify that those maintenance issues be done within this next 12 months?
I think that's one Marianne will take.
Yeah. Can I come in on a couple of things, if that's okay? Can I go back a step before the maintenance query? Can I just go back to the classrooms in the country and our approach to optioning, which I hope will clarify what we've done here. So in terms of the terminology of classrooms in the country, I'm not really sure what that means in terms of is it a certain thing? Is it a specific thing? I'm taking it as being a school under the management of another larger school, or being a site of being the dual-sited school, or being a site of a dual-sited school. And if you look at our optioning, because it's such a complex catchment, the way we've approached the optioning for the three schools are really looking at their specific circumstances and their nearest schools. So if you look at Bro-Cynllaeth, you'll see that the options are linked with Llanrhaeadr. And one of the options there is to merge with the Llanrhaeadr. Another option is to become under the governance of Llanrhaeadr as a second site. So I would argue that that assessment is really an assessment of whether the classroom in the country model is viable or not, or the benefits and the disadvantages, etc. So I put that out there, and then you can see from the other ones as well how we've approached the optioning. It's the same for Bryn Hafren. So that's that. In terms of building maintenance, the local authority has a duty to support and maintain and improve the condition of its buildings, regardless of whether they're in a school reorganisation process or not. We recognise there is a backlog maintenance and works required at Llanfechijn, and we will be prioritising works within the school's major improvements programme as per that process in terms of supporting any works required at Llanfechijn. And given also that potentially a new build for Llanfechijn, Llansanfraid may be a long time away, we need to make sure that the pupils that attend Llanfechijn school will have as good a learning environment as possible. So I hope that answers the question, Aled.
Yeah, Dr. Marianne, and you've partly made justification of why it's so important to have that timeline of investment within new schools, because when you see a big backlog of maintenance across the school estates, and that will certainly cost the local authority to rectify. We need a clear timeline of school investment in new schools. Quite frankly, I don't think it's coming soon enough. Personally, and as I said before, it should be tied in with the transformation process, or put more crudely, closing of schools. And that this paper is really weak on that area.
It's the same for Bryn
Bryn
Haven,
Haven,
Fancilio as well. Fancilio's got a much bigger spend needed than Bryn Haven.
Thank you both. I'm going to bring Bryn in there. I try not to make comment from the chair, but I'm just building on the comments that have been made. The impact assessments before us are very reliant on new builds.
Yeah.
If those new builds don't happen, those impact assessments change. So I think there's an important point to realise. I'm going to bring Councillor Bryn in now. Councillor Bryn, I know there is an option for your translation.
Is there?
And it takes you sitting further away from us because the translation's coming through, but we can hear your voice in the chamber, which is disappointing, really. Bryn, I know it's not nice, but if you went to sit in the members' lounge, I'm sure it works. And sorry, I don't want to suggest that, but we've got Eyeless with us today, and the translation isn't working, and I'm as frustrated as yourself. I do apologise.
Well, I'd be tempted if all those who could speak Welsh and wanted to speak Welsh would come with me. I'd be all right. I'll think about it, but I won't lose time at the moment. I'll ask the question I had in mind. Ysgol, talk of moving Ysgol Llanrhaeadr y Mochnant ar hyd y spectrum along the continuum. You know, this is essential. Are governors on board for this at Llanrhaeadr already? Are they in line, or a ducks in a row for that to happen, or is it going to be a 10-year battle to get move an inch?
Shall I come in here?
Speak freely, please.
Yeah.
You
Me?
want to take it on me, Mario?
I was going to just say,
Marianne, I think you may be. I think your microphone may be muted.
Sorry, who's speaking? Sorry.
There we go, Marianne. If you want to take the floor, Councillor Pete suggested yourself.
Right. Okay. Sorry. Just to say with Ysgol Llanrhaeadr y Mochnant, it has been for quite a while a problem in recruiting the head teacher there. But we do now have a situation where there's a permanent head teacher in place and a Welsh speaker as well. So hoping to build on that on the Welsh medium in that school. We had conversations with the governing body there as part of the engagement, and very positive in regards to the Welsh language there. At the moment, the numbers are more or less 50-50 between both streams, so there would be quite a lot of work to be done to move that school along the language continuum. And with other schools where we have done this, the ratio between the Welsh medium and the English medium is far greater by the time we get to doing the statutory consultations, etc. So
I didn't catch the end of what you're saying about the ratios.
Yeah, sorry, Bryn. The ratio in Llanrhaeadr y Mochnant currently is around 50-50 in the Welsh stream and the English stream. And in the proposals that we've taken forward in the past, the ratios between the streams are quite radically different. So there's far more in the Welsh streams than in the English streams when we move these schools to become Welsh medium schools.
Okay, I mean, Ysgol Llanfyllin has expressed an intention to move organically along the spectrum. and they have staff have worked hard to get more into the Welsh medium stream. That yeah, it's going to take such a long time for it to happen. Is it always by popular vote, or can we use logic and reason to move the decision forward? Because if that's the ultimate goal, why not make it sooner rather than later? If the ultimate goal is wrong, let them come out and say that, because it is it is a choice. I'm not sure what as an education authority or people involved in education, we should be condoning people's desire to not learn Welsh and expect everybody else to learn English in order to accommodate them as part of society. I think it has to be recognised that bilingual education unites societies and unites groups, and the kind of education we've had in the area is fundamentally divisive. We don't. So is there any device we can use other than majoritarianism to move the progress more quickly before native speakers, natural speakers die out in the area?
I would suggest, Councillor Pete, that would be a question for yourself. Can the pace of this transformation happen quick enough to progress the Welsh medium education in this area?
The main thing is consent. The last thing we want to do is create a situation where there is resentment and tension within the unit. What we have seen in Rhywbeccan is a steady migration towards Welsh medium, and that will eventually lead to a transfer. What we're looking at here in Llanrhaeadr is working on opportunities to create a similar environment. There is need for more work. We need to do some work to understand why parents from what is one of our strongest Welsh speaking areas in the county are opting for an English medium education. We then need to understand how they can be supported to change those opinions. Is it a concern that they would not be able to support their children through Welsh medium education? In which case, let's work with Mentor to actually put together programs for English-speaking parents to learn Welsh to the level that they can support their children more fully and grow both the parents and the children that are Welsh speakers. But at this stage, as we've identified within the plan for the programme, we are envisaging that in the mid-term window, Llanrhaeadr would start to make active progression along the continuum with a view to it becoming a Welsh medium school, probably with one head on 2 sites, covering Llanrhaeadr and a school pennant by the end of this 10-year period, which would be in keeping with our proposals within the West.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, I'd like to point out that there is tension and resentment within the community, but when it only comes from one side, it doesn't seem to matter. Can we explore how much support there's going to be for trochi, because this is fundamental to the to progress, especially in increasing numbers of Welsh bilingual people in the high school. Is there support available from at a county level to help with this trochi scheme, which certainly the Llanbechlan High School are eager to go ahead with. In a quick straw poll in one evening, we found 19 families who were interested in it between years 5 and 6, and that was just people who happened to walk past the desk on an open evening. There was no communication with the network of primary schools around us. But so Trochi is fundamental to it, and the suggestion has been that we offer the Trochi experience to year 6 members during the last half term, an 8-week program possibly, and then they would enable them to join a Trochi stream then in years 7 and 8, possibly in 9, depending on progress in the high school. That would make a massive difference, and it is something the high school is hoping to go forward with. Can they anticipate support from particularly financial support with this from Powys?
I think Georgie's jumping to come in there, Councillor Pete, but I
was going to make one comment and then pass over to officers. One of the key things that officers are working at the moment is for that whole area with the earth coming up to have the Ostead put there next year, is to ensure that there is a legacy, and putting in place Trochi and other support, both for children and adults, linked to the earth is one of the key priorities that I've asked officers to look at in the next couple of months, so that we have a plan that runs forward and supports that. But I'm going to pass across to Georgie to make further comment.
Thank you very much. Yeah, just to say that we are aware, Councillor Bryn, of the Trochi pilot that was running Clonbucklin, and it was really successful. That is my understanding from Delith in terms of that enablement of those learners at that age. We have got a team that can support around the Welsh development language within IRIG's team as well, and we're looking at that support coming in. We've also recruited on a secondment for the first time this year a part-time Welsh medium first language SIA to support our Welsh medium schools around that, and again potentially the growing of the Trochi in other schools as well in the area. So we have also, as you know, appointed Bethan to lead the WESP and be the strategic lead for us on that. So we have got that in mind, and that is one of the elements that we are in, because we have seen the impact of it, the positive impact of the implementation of the Trochi with those learners at that age particularly. Just echoing what Councillor Peter said around the earth, we met with the head teachers last week regarding the earth coming to the north of Powys and our build up to that, and how this is the stepping stone for us to continue to grow the Welsh language across Powys, but particularly in the north. And as part of the head teacher development group today, we talked about the different elements of information to share at the area heads regarding this, and how this is an additional springboard for us around the Welsh language.
A quick comment now then, Bryn, sorry.
Yeah, no, diolch yn iawn. The other question, it might be more relevant when we come to talk about Llanfair, about cooperation between schools. Should I leave it till then, or? Yeah, fine.
That would be my preference.
Yeah, diolch, Georgie.
Councillor Danny, you've been indicating for some time now and you've disappeared. Councillor Danny, if you still wish to make that comment, I'm going to bring you in first.
Well, the conversation's moved on a bit since then, really. Thank you, Chair. It's back to building condition, if I may, if that doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Going back to the building condition, it's more of a comment now than a question. Looking at the figures of that, we've got something to learn from this. Like, although it's down as a backlog, to me, that's a catastrophic failure on the account of Powys Council. And if it's through funding from the Welsh government, someone needs to be ashamed that it's got that bad, to be fair. And it's got to the point, looking at that figure, that something needs to be done drastically and drastically quick. But we also need to have our clear, concise plan to decide what is best on progress. We want to be the last people to hold up progress. We want to make good progress with it all, and yeah, learning is key. But yeah, but back to the building side of things, it's maintenance is key, as I've said before, and we need to follow suit on this with everything within the council, not just the schools. Thank you.
Point taken, Danny. Margaret, your first intervention.
Yes, thank you. No, looking at what we're discussing, we have got schools, one just down the road from me that I'm very familiar with, that are becoming bilingual, but the English stream is being phased out. What have we learned from that and the schools that have gone down this route so far? Because I think it should be feeding into the positives from that, should be feeding into what's happening now and into the situation, so that it can inform parents in other areas and other people in other areas. So I don't know how those schools are being monitored and evaluated that can provide useful information to feed into other situations in the future.
Margaret's asking, are there lessons to be learned from progress we've made in other schools that we can adopt in this area?
Can I come in?
Yeah, go on there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yes, we have now moved a few schools along the language continuum. I think the main lesson for me is that we need to have a period of engagement and dialogue with the schools. It's easier and more beneficial if the schools are in support of the move rather than having a more hostile environment. The other thing we've learned is that we need to make it very, very clear to parents what the benefits of Welsh medium education are. A lot of parents, aunts who are from non-Welsh speaking backgrounds may not be aware of the benefits and the fact that pupils, particularly when they're very young, absorb languages and become fluent very, very quickly, and also what the support we can provide for them. And also families with children from a very young age need to know what the progression is right through from the start of their lives, really, right through to the end of their education. So there are a number of things that I think we have learned from them. One of the things in terms of evidence is that we've moved Bro Hybgen, and that's now in its second year. Pupil numbers there haven't dropped. Local parents are still choosing that school, even though it's now moved from a dual stream to a Welsh medium. But there are, again, we continue to monitor, we continue to support these schools, and we continue to promote Welsh medium education and bilingualism throughout. Those are the things that we've learned.
Thank you, Marianne. Margaret, are you looking to come back there?
Yes, please, if I can. That's really good. But I'm just thinking of the parents, because I'm sure perhaps those parents would be useful people to speak to other parents who are undergoing this, because they probably felt like them. And you've probably got a lot now that would have a different view, a very much more positive view. I'm just wondering, are we using all that as effectively and that opportunity as effectively as it could be?
I don't think we are, Margaret, but it's definitely something we need to pick up. So thank you for your comments there. That's really useful.
Thank you both. Members, I will have to put a timescale on it at some point, but obviously it's important that every point is aired and that it is duly scrutinised. I've got a long list here, which perhaps that we haven't addressed. I would like to move it on to something else now, and I'm going to ask Councillor Graham Breeze to come in now, because the project is marketed as the Llanfochlin North Welshmoor catchment area, and maybe Councillor Breeze would add to this so that we can have a little bit of a debate on the inclusion of Welshpool in this catchment area, please. Just for information, Councillor Breeze isn't a member of this committee, but he formally asked me to speak, and I accepted that request.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you for inviting me as one of the local members who, like many other local members, over the weekend has probably been bombarded by questions about this report, which suddenly appeared with very little knowledge for many of us prior to that. And while I welcome that there is seen to be some urgency in addressing these matters now, I am really disappointed at the contents of this report in regard to the lack of consideration given to Welshpool High School. I have voiced these considerations to Marianne, to Georgie, and to Councillor Pete in the last week, but they are of real concern. The lack of consideration given to Welshpool High School, for instance, it is in the Llanfyllin and North Welshpool catchment review, yet Welshpool High School has been ignored completely in the process so far. The only reference that I can find in this report to schools being in the Welshpool catchment area is a very short line in at 2.5, which says that Welshpool should be the contents to Welshpool High School should be considered, and nothing else. Some of the schools being discussed are clearly in the Welshpool catchment area, Welshpool High School catchment area, Ardleen in particular, and the impact of changes to that catchment would be very damaging to Welshpool High School. The high school was not invited to be a part of the consultation visits to the schools, to the local schools, and only attended Ardleen at the invitation of the head there. As I understand it, Llanfyllin High School was represented. It's really disappointing to have reached this stage with no discussions regarding changes to Welshpool High School's catchment area, having taken place with high school governors. And I want assurances from this day forward that Welshpool High School will be fully involved at every stage. And I want detailed evidence to appear in these reports going forward of what the impact will be to not just Welshpool High School, but to Llanfyllin High School as well, in terms of school numbers and the impact of loss or gain will have on those schools. As an LA governor, it was extremely embarrassing to have fellow governors and high school staff hear of these proposals via the press before I, as the local member and governor, had seen sight. And that's really, really unprofessional. And I'm sure that many of the other local councillors have been in exactly the same boat as me, but I am looking for assurances today that that will not continue and that Welshpool High School will now be consulted at every single instance. Thank you, Chair.
Anybody wish to pick that up?
I will.
Go on, Marianne.
All right, okay. Just to say, as we go forward to explore the options around Ardleen, Carrickhover and Llandyssilio, we are very, very aware that those three schools go to different catchment areas. We're also aware that should they come together, then we will have to try and find and understand how that impacts on the feeder high schools and the impact on pupil numbers. So I think what we've got in the document quite clearly outlines that we are fully aware of the impact on both Welshpool High School and Llanfyllin High School should there be a change of catchment for those three schools. There could be opportunities should they, for instance, come together on the three sites initially. We'll need to explore whether they can have a split high school catchment. So there are a number of things that we would need to understand going forward. And I will give you assurances, Welshpool High School will be part of those discussions. But at the moment, there are no proposals for those three schools. They're simply an exploration of options and that to take place at a later point. So I hope that that gives you some assurance.
Thank you, Councillor
Thank you,
Breeze.
Marianne.
I think it is an important point, and these preferred options moving forward. We've had school catchment maps, and we've requested sight of these prior to this meeting again, so that we could give them some study. We've also got the new school transport policy. Some of these proposals, preferred options forward, they in effect tear those documents up. So they've all got to be aligned together, and all the work that's been done on catchment maps, all the work that's been done on school transport, certainly don't align to what is proposed here. So it creates great difficulty. I'm going back to Councillor Lucy. There's one other point I'd like to raise and some clarification. I would like to have a quick discussion about Yscol Maibod, because I think that's news to us as well. So just a bit of comment on that. But I'll go to Councillor Lucy first.
Thank you again, Chair. A couple of quick points. Can I ask, in the report, the cost per pupil, is that based on the current funding formula as it stands this year, or previous funding formulas, or is it based on the actual cost per pupil from the school budgets as they stand this year? And then while I'm speaking, I'll just mention that so the final thing is that on the SWOT analysis in the reports, a number of the weaknesses and threats aren't properly addressed. There's no response given as to how those will be addressed. And one of the key ones for Bryn Havren is the flooding, which can occur for up to 3 weeks in any year, or in the past has occurred for up to 3 weeks in any year. Could well get worse with climate change. But that means that there could be 3 weeks out of the school year when pupils either can't get to an alternative school or have to travel an extremely long way round. And I don't feel that that's adequately addressed in the document. Thank you.
Yeah, two good points. Cost per pupil first, and then the flooding that affects that area.
Okay, cost per pupil has come from the section 52 report based on 22-23 financial year.
Okay, thanks for that, Marianne. And the analysis that you've taken previously, I think there's other comments we could make into that, but Councillor Pete explained that these are things which he's still taking in consideration, will be picked up in consultation, but there is a relevant point in the case of Bryn Havren. It is an area of severe flooding, and I don't think Lucy's using an overestimation. It could last for 3 weeks.
How did they get to Yscol Llanfairpwllgwyngyllgogerychwr during floods?
Okay, so the point is that please take consideration for those views in future consultation moving forward. Yep. Aled.
Just very quickly before you move on, there's a lack of clear data here on each of the pupils. In previous reports, we've had, this pupil A is from catchment B, but goes to catchment C. The pupil M is nearer to such a school and then another school. We haven't had that sort of detailed information where we can almost understand which way the pupils are likely to flow. So much more information around the pupil data, and of course it doesn't. That will just be a picture now. We need to understand the whole geography of an area as well to see whether the nearest schools are to all the households within an area. Just quick comment. I know it's been picked up on before, but the impact assessment was incredibly reliable for the positive outcomes on new build. There should really be those should be stripped away, because what we've heard today, we will not see those new builds for a decade. There will be 2 cohorts of children flowing through the primary schools before that happens. So the impact assessment really needs to reflect what you've got in the paper rather than hopes and aspirations and maybes. Because quite frankly, is irrelevant. We've seen a complete 180-degree turns by this cabinet, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see another 180-degree turn. You know, because it's an issue of trust as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Allen. I'd just like to ask a question myself. Obviously, these documents are very similar to documents that we've seen previously. Ysgol Maibod is a new addition to this. I've got to be very careful in my wording, but it is suggesting that I think the terminology in the report is consideration given to Maibod following a new build at Ysgol Llanfoslen. I quite frankly don't know what that means. So it's the first inclusion that I've seen in the transformation affecting Maibod, and I think it's right of us to ask for a little bit more detail on that.
I'll start off, and then Marianne might follow on from me. Every year, there's an opportunity for schools to put in a request to change catchment, and that is then assessed, and that comes through in the admissions process. Ysgol Maibod made the request to move from the Brocherainian catchment into the Llanfachrine catchment in 2020, end of 21, start of 2022. So they have moved out of the Brocherainian catchment, which they were in at the time of the last report on this catchment area, into the Llanfachrine catchment. They are an English focused school rather than dual stream or Welsh medium, and there is some uncertainty as to how the proposals that we'll talk about in a minute in the Brocherainian area might impact upon that school. They are an outlier away from the rest of the catchment, with Llanfachrine being their nearest school. And the view of both Marianne and I, when looking at it, was we wanted to understand the impact of any proposals in the Brocherainian area which were emerging at the time that we visited Maibod, before making a formal recommendation. So we're highlighting that in the middle time frame that there is a need for a review to look at what the relationship is for Maibod, what size of school it is, and what is the best relationship for it. At the moment, it is a sustainable standalone school, so we felt that there was no need to make immediate actions in respect of that school. Do you want to add anything onto that, Marianne?
No, I think you covered that.
Thank you very much. I think that's set hairs racing, in my opinion, and that's a little bit of a worry for myself. But there we go. Members, I think we've had sufficient debate. I think we've raised some very important points. I'm reluctant to add conclusions to it at this stage because there's so many points being made. Proper scrutiny would go through some recommendations which we formulated today, but I think there were so many that I think we need to put them together and share with you before we populate them to cabinet, really. One further comment that I would make is I'm being an advocate for the pace of transformation. I worry about this because it doesn't look like an awful lot's going to happen in the term of this council. And what happens when we get into another new council, different councils, different leadership, and that worries me a little bit. So, but as I said, wrong of me to make conclusions now. We'll put some conclusions together. Cass been busy typing away, and I think there's a lot of stuff that we need to consider. Steve.
Sure. Did you mention there have been correspondence from Councillor Highland Hume?
It's in relation to Brocherainian.
My apologies.
Members. the next item of transformation due consideration. I'm going to suggest a very, very quick comfort break now of 5 minutes. That will bring us back at 4:15. I would like to think that we would conclude that by 5:30 at the latest. I know we've got other agenda items, but we'll deal with them as and wish. So if we can have a quick comfort break, I would be very grateful. Okay, thank you. Please don't leave the meeting. Suggest that you remain silent or put your screen on pause, but we'll return to the meeting as quick as we can. Welcome back, everybody. Sorry for that delay, but we'd been at it for some time, so I thought it was only appropriate to have a comfort break. Members, it's very clear that we're not going to address a slightly disappointed item 4 and item 5 on your agenda. If we could just deal with that now. They're important documents that we need to give some scrutiny to. We obviously pushed them back from last week because our agendas were too heavy. We've got a couple of options as I see it. We can either do some virtual scrutiny on it. We can do scrutiny by email, or indeed we call a different meeting again at some future date, which is difficult because we've got to get officers together. But please, let's decide on a way forward on those two agenda items, which we're not going to pick up on today. Any suggestions? I think there's important points to be made. Over a secondary school improvement strategy, I think it would be better if we had officers at our disposal. So we could do an informal meeting, which would probably make it easier for us to get officers together and make some recommendations out of an informal meeting, or we look for a meeting in the diary. Yeah. Councillor Pate.
Chair, may I come in? May I come in and suggest there's been a number of questions come up around the WESP today, and officers are more than willing to give you a briefing on the WESP to address that. If you want to take these items as another more formal meeting, we could add that in as a third presentation to make it more worthwhile for you.
Thank you, Pete, for that suggestion. Marianne?
Happy with that, yeah.
Happy to meet Lynette. Lynette's got a hand up as well.
Yeah, happy to meet Chair and around the secondary school. Sorry, I was a little bit late coming back from the break there. I take it your suggestion with the secondary school to have it on another date, and we'll meet with yourselves then. Was that the suggestion, or to go ahead with it? Sorry.
Yeah,
Chair.
no, that's great. Kath, can you look for another date? I know it's incredibly difficult, but I think there's some important points to be made around.
Yeah, no, we'd like to. We welcome that. Thank you, Chair.
Raise that at that stage because I know we're going to have some members losing as we move on.
Yeah.
Members, I'm just looking for the agenda. Right, we move on to our school's transformation, our school broker Ryan. As I did previously, Councillor Pete and then over to Marianne.
Thanks, Grimble. My contribution is going to be shorter on this one. Ysgol Coronion was identified within the WESP as the site for a potential Welsh medium school. This really brings forward, with cooperation from the governors, a proposal to make that a reality. With the proposal that's outlined, it would actually become our first Welsh medium school because it would complete its transition 3 years before Ysgol Bro Hafgen. It does open up a lot of questions, and I look forward to hearing from Scrutiny about those. Marianne again will lead us through this process and the information in the paper, but we're also now joined by Bethan, our Welsh language lead, who will be available to talk about more detailed information around Trochi, both for this school and also potentially in relation to the schools in the Llanbathin catchment, if you want to take those as an extra element of information. So without more ado, I'll pass you across to Marianne to take you through this paper.
Thank you, diolch. Ysgol Bro Creinion is an all-age school located in Llanfaircynion, established in September 2022. So we went through the process of amalgamating Caerenion High School and Llanfaircynion Primary School a few years ago. We identified at that time that Ysgol Bro Creinion was a key player for us in terms of the delivery of Welsh medium education, central to the council's ambition around the Welsh medium strategy, and also central to developing designated Welsh medium. However, the proposal that we put forward at the time was for a dual stream school, and there was a lot of feedback during the consultations at that time around that it should become a Welsh medium secondary school. However, it was established as a dual stream school. We said in those papers that we would be working with the governing body of the school to develop their Welsh medium provision, and if at any point we would need to take the next step to move the school forward to become a Welsh medium school, then another statutory process would be required. So we've been quite clear all along since those days about our ambition for Bro Creinion and the fact that another statutory process would be required. So the recommendation in your papers today, this is a proposal paper, and it's recommended that Cabinet approves commencing that statutory process on the following proposal in order to move Ysgol Bro Creinion along the language continuum. So to make a regulated alteration to alter the medium of instruction at Ysgol Bro Creinion from dual stream to Welsh medium. And this will be introduced on a phased basis, year by year, starting with reception in year 7 in September 2025. Now, this is the difference between this proposal and the proposal that we took for Ysgol Bro Hyfgen in Machynlleth, where Ysgol Bro Hyfgen in Machynlleth is on its journey on a phased basis, moving from dual stream to Welsh medium, but starting from reception and growing the school over 12, 13, 14 years. The pressure has been in North East Powys and in Central Powys, Central Montgomeryshire, I should say, has been around the lack of designated secondary Welsh medium provision. Therefore, in order to speed up the process to get to a secondary Welsh medium provision, that we are proposing that it is a phased change, but reception in year 7 changing at the same time. This will mean that an enhanced level of trochi will be required to support those pupils that are currently in some of the English medium classes who will be transferring to Welsh medium at year 7. So we're proposing stronger immersion provision there, which we are calling trochi pontio. And then additional Welsh language support would be provided alongside the change for staff as well, in order to improve their fluency. I have to say, before going any further, I am going to just jump to the case for change here, if that's okay, and the reasons why we are proposing this at this stage. There are changes in English medium provision in the area. So the number of pupils currently feeding Ysgol Bro Creinion in the English stream has significantly decreased over time. Ysgol Meifod has moved out of the catchment. Castle Creinion was an English medium school which closed last year. So therefore, the only English medium pupils feeding the secondary stage of Bro Creinion are those from Bro Creinion's primary phase and Ysgol Rhyw Bechan in Treganon. There are also financial challenges that come with running a dual stream school. So as we were continuing to discuss the ambition and the aspiration with the school, it became apparent that it was getting increasingly financially difficult and operationally difficult to try and provide equity across both streams. I will also say that another part of the case for change is that Powys doesn't have access to a designated Welsh medium secondary provision, so there's no clear progression routes, and that has an impact on where pupils are transferring to from primary to secondary in the area. So we have pupils who go through Welsh medium primary education and then choose other dual stream schools, or they choose to go into English medium provision at that time, and that is because there is no clear designated secondary provision that pupils in Welsh medium settings in the area know full well that that is a school that they can transfer to at year 7. So for us, I'm gonna be quiet in a bit, but I think for this council, this is a milestone moment. This is addressing an issue that we have been lobbied about for the last 10, 20, 30 years. And I think this is a very it's a timely move. It's got the backing of the governing body. There will be concerns that we will pick up during the consultation period if Cabinet approves consultation. And we will want to work then with parents to provide that reassurance around the change. So I'll stop there and I'll take your questions.
Thank you, Marianne. Brief introduction into the document. I would inform scrutiny members, and please correct me if I'm wrong. The previous item was a preferred way forward. This item before us today is a proposal.
Yes.
So I think that's significant for us as scrutiny members that we appreciate that. Members, any indication? Councillor Gareth, please.
Diolch i chi, Mr Cadeirydd. Yeah, following the letter that went last July to Powys requesting that we move along the language continuum in the near future, the pace has totally taken us by surprise. The lack of communication, as Councillor Breeze has mentioned earlier, has also disappointed us. And we've heard earlier with Llanfyllin that the portfolio holder has visited Llanfyllin and Myford. And I'd just like to extend an invitation to him now to come and visit the governors, see the school. And there's I know he did mention to me at the beginning of this meeting that he will do that, and please come and speak to us. But on the whole, the ambition to make Ysgol Bro Crynion a Welsh language school is something that the governors welcome. If we turn to page 4 of the impact assessment, it says the proposal to introduce a change on a phased basis to minimise the impact on pupils currently attending the school, and the impact is neutral. And I know Marianne has just touched upon it, but at the beginning she said in Bro Hyfgen, pupil numbers since the transition into Welsh haven't dropped. Now I understand from what you said in the introduction, Marianne, that you want to do this at pace to supply a school in North East Powys, but when the letter came from the governors, it asked that from the intake in the primary phase in reception happens, and then 2 years later their intake doesn't happen in the secondary phase. Now this is not what's happening. It's all going to happen at once. Now, bearing in mind the impact assessment, my question is, do you think that neutral should still be there on the impact assessment? Thank you.
That's a good question, Gareth. I think it is a neutral because of the fact that we will be putting in additional support to support that element of trochi, and for those pupils that are impacted with that transition to year 7. And I understand that that is where the main concern is going to come from. There are currently 21 or so pupils in Bro Crynion that would be impacted by that change, but also, and we mustn't forget, there would be 28 pupils in the English stream in Rhyw Bechan that would also be impacted. So the trochi provision that we would provide, and Bethan will come in here, would also include those pupils from Rhyw Bechan as well. So it's about giving all the feeder schools that support, particularly those pupils that are will be impacted by that change, that transition into the Welsh medium year 7. But I would argue that it's still neutral. However, I'm happy to sort of be told otherwise. In terms of the impact assessment, just to let you know as well, in terms of the impact assessments, they are provided as draft. When we get to then consultation, they're published as part of the consultation papers and are updated at every stage of the process, you know, to include the views of the consultees, etc. So as a starting point, I would say it's neutral.
I'm gonna let Gareth continue because there's nobody else indicating this yet.
Thank you, and thank you, Marianne. I am finding this difficult to come at this as a scrutiny point of view with my personal connection with the governors and the school within Llawer, but I will do my best. You mentioned then the trochi. You mentioned then trochi, and we discussed it earlier in Llanfallen. When is this going to start? Like, let's assume that this gets approved. This is huge to making this work. There's no point starting trochi on the 1st of September 25. This needs to start now to give every learner within Ysgol Llybechan and Ysgol Crynan, and indeed anywhere, the opportunity to be immersed in the language. Can I go a little bit further? As well as the learners, there's also teachers and parents. I've got a number of teachers who may wish to take a sabbatical and go and learn the language. But we can't all start at the beginning of the new school year in 2025. Well, there may be too many teachers vacant. So when do you envisage this starting if the cabinet approve this next week?
Okay, you're very faint, Gareth, but I think I got that. It needs to start as soon as possible in terms of the trochi, and I think I heard you mention staff going on sabbaticals as well. So that's something else we'd need to look at as early as possible. I'm just going to bring Bethan in to talk about the Pontio trochi Pontio, if she's with us.
Yeah, certainly, diolch. Trochi, as we know it at the moment within the council, is perhaps quite reactive to the pupils who request that service. What we're looking at now, obviously, is changing the way we look at trochi and being much more proactive about the way we offer trochi, and specifically it's a supported development. I totally agree. It will need to happen sooner than the 25 stated if this proposal goes forward. We are currently recruiting to our Swyddogion Gymraeg team for someone to be focused on trochi, so that we can increase our offer and ensure that we are able to focus it where it's needed. If this goes forward, then specifically Ysgol Bro Crynion. I don't know, are there any specific questions on trochi?
Diolch, Bethan. There's some others wishing to come in, so please pick up on them as you wish. I'm going to go to Aled, Lucy, and then Bryn, please.
It wasn't specifically on trochi, but
no, carry on.
Just for clarity, really, it's great news to see Ysgol Bro Crynion yn dod yn Ysgol Gymraeg yn y dyfodol ma' hwnna'n newyddion arbennig o dda. But just it might cause difficulties with other elements of council policy. I'm just picking on Rhyw for example. It's got a years 3, 4, 5, 6. There's around 10 pupils in each year. What happens if that's a pupil in the English medium stream in Rhyw actually lives a little bit closer to Llanmer School than it does to Newtown School, and that the parents and that pupil don't want a Welsh medium education? What would happen to that pupil? Would that pupil have the right to have transport to Newtown, or would they have to go to Ysgol Llanmer Crynion, their closest? And of course, there'd be a fantastic trochi scheme there. So it obviously would be near a suitable school. So even if the child didn't want to go to Llanmer Crynion, would that child have the right to transport, free transport to Drenewydd.
Thank you, Councillor Aled. Before anybody picks up on that, it's an opportune moment actually, because Rubechan has been mentioned. Similarly to Councillor Graham Breeze, Councillor Hylwyn Hume, the ward councillor for Rubechan, asked to speak today, but sadly cannot be with us. But she has sent comment in to me, which she has asked me to read. So I think this is a certain relevance to Aled's point as well. So I shall read it now if that's acceptable. Basically, due to unforeseen circumstances, I'm unable to attend. People and families have moved to Tregaron because it's a dual stream school with pupils, then naturally transition to Carahinian High School, dual stream school. That is a choice parents have made to ensure their children continue to enjoy and embrace their education journey. With the proposal in front of us today, I can assure you parents do not want to redirect their English stream children from Carahinian High School to Newtown High School because, one, they are rural kids, they are country kids, they feel more protected, and they have built up long-lasting friendships from the reception class upwards. This is also seen as dividing families up, whereby one child in the Welsh stream and one child in the English stream, but potentially going to different schools. I'm also hearing of parents looking to move their English stream children from Ysgol Rhywbechan to Berryw so that they go to Welshpool High School as against Newtown High School. I genuinely believe the Ysgol Rhywbechan will lose numbers in the English stream, which will impact on class sizes. They already have 3 year groups in one class due to low English numbers. This is not the way forward. Parents feel this decision is being forced upon them, and please remember Welsh is not for every child. I know one pupil has switched from the Welsh to the English stream now with September. His mum reports he is much happier and is much more talkative child, something that has been lacking because he was struggling in the Welsh stream. Finally, I'm aware Ysgol Rhywbechan is in the Carahinian cluster group, and I do have grave concerns that if this proposal goes forward, what will be impact on Ysgol Rhywbechan, and will it remain a dual stream school? It's a point that's developed Aled's point, so anybody able to make any comment?
Okay, I'll come in first, and I'll touch on the transport policy as well. But in terms of Rhywbechan, I think what we have here, and I include Rhywbechan in this, if you look at the pupil numbers across the schools that feed into Bro Crainion secondary provision, what we have is a significant change in the number of Welsh medium pupils. The number of families choosing Welsh medium education is going through the roof in this area. So we've got increasing numbers in Rhywbechan, we've got increasing numbers in Bro Crainion, we've got increasing numbers in Dafydd Llwyd, and also in Ysgol Gymraeg y Trallwng. So this is what I see as an opportunity and a massive success story for this county if this proposal could go through. I don't underestimate the concerns of parents in English medium, with pupils in English medium provision or Welsh medium provision, about the scale of the change going forward. But I do think that this is now an opportunity for this council to really make a step change here. And there also has to be we have to be better at promoting the benefits of a bilingual education, and for parents to understand that you go into Welsh medium education, you don't come out as a monoglot Welsh speaker, you come out with fluent in 2 languages. If you go into an English stream, unfortunately, you do come out primarily as an English speaker with a smattering of Welsh. Although that is improving due to the new curriculum as well. So I feel we need to, as a society, really change how we view Welsh medium education. And I think the current system that we have in Powys and have had for a number of years of dual stream and no Welsh medium secondary provision in particular, the communities don't understand, because that's you know, the benefits, because that is what they've already have. This is what they already know. But I do understand, and I as I said, I appreciate that individual families will have their concerns, and I think it's a duty then of the local authority to try and work with them and allay those concerns. In terms of the transport policy, going back to Alec's point, the current homeschool transport policy provides transport to your closest or catchment school. And it also provides opportunity for those pupils wishing to have Welsh medium provision to have free transport to a Welsh medium school if it isn't their closest school. And the purpose of that is to promote Welsh medium education in a county where the majority of schools are and still continue to be English medium schools. Therefore, in order to provide those opportunities for all families to be able to access Welsh medium provision. So the home to school transport policy that was approved in September 2020 has that discretionary measure within it. Does that help?
But it doesn't really answer the question. Dwi'n cydweld gyda popeth wyt ti wedi dweud, Marianne. I agree with everything you said o gwmpas addysg Cymraeg, but it doesn't answer the question. You might have convinced me, but just saying if there was a family within the Llama catchment that didn't want to send their pupil to have a secondary education through the medium of Welsh, whether they can speak Welsh or not. You know, that is the choice of that family. Would there be free transport to the nearest English stream or English?
No.
Okay.
And I may not have been clear enough, Aled. So the current policy is to the closest school, or catchment school. So if a pupil lived in Treganon and was closer to Broch Reinion, that the transport policy, the free transport would be provided to Broch Reinion, regardless of language. There is the transport appeal system as well. So if parents have the ability to appeal a decision, so that would be open to them as well. So the current transport policy, that is how current transport policy works. Okay.
Diolch yn fawr, Marianne. It's no, then it's good news for the whole of East Montgomeryshire, because there will be free transport to anybody who wants to go to Ysgol Caerenion to receive Welsh medium education from my part of the world all the way down towards Ryder, because Llanfair will be the closest secondary provision of Welsh medium education. So that's brilliant. But
can I come in there just to clarify one thing? Can I clarify?
I think he was being devil's advocate there. Go on, Marianne.
I thought you were. I thought you were. Right. In terms of the home to school transport policy, the current Powys policy does not differentiate between Welsh medium schools and dual stream schools. Therefore, Welsh provision, as defined within the current policy, could mean a dual stream school, or it could mean a Welsh medium school. My point is that going forward, this is something that the council will have to start to think about, because there is a difference between designated Welsh medium schools and dual stream schools. However, this hasn't been addressed previously. But the fact that we are now moving hopefully moving two of our current secondary schools to become Welsh medium secondary providers means that the council needs to consider the impact of the current policy on that. The homeschool transport policy should be an enabler of the transformation programme rather than driving the transformation programme. So that's something that I want to put out there, and that's something that this council will have to consider if this proposal goes through.
I'll leave
Yeah.
you one more stab at it.
I agree. It's the transport policy is secondary. The education is primary. But you see examples of children transported from Brecon catchment to Ystalfera because the provision within the Brecon catchment isn't good enough. And if somebody says, well, in Yscol such and such, I can't take every subject through the medium of Welsh, therefore the provision isn't good enough, therefore you have a duty to transport me to Yscol Carainion or wherever, where there'll be absolutely brilliant provision. Sorry, I should have declared an interest right at the beginning, but I don't think it excludes me from the debate. My son works at Yscol Carainion. I checked that with Clive the other evening, and he said it was fine. But
that's my understanding as well, Councillor.
So I better put it out there just to make it doubly clear.
I've got Councillor Lucy waiting and Councillor Bryn. Marianne, I just want clarification here, and I want to make sure this is correct. We were speaking about Yscol Rhywbechan. So a child that is an English-speaking family, an English speaker, or even residing in Llanfairpwllgwyngyllgogerynion, they aren't entitled to school transport to an English school.
Not according to the current policy.
Okay. Okay, thank you for that clarification. Councillor Lucy. That was Councillor Lucy's question. That solves a lot of time. Sorry, Councillor Lucy. Councillor Bryn.
Okay, yeah, diolch yn iawn. Yeah, a couple more points to raise now. But I mean that policy is a good thing, because the whole point of we need to stop using terms Welsh medium and English medium as if they are equivalent things. So I am proposing, and I've done this before, that we refer to education, bilingual outcome Welsh medium education, boom, and English medium monolingual outcome, EMO. So we've got boom education and emo education, and there is a massive difference. Bilingual outcome Welsh medium education, their English is as good as anybody else's in the county, and their confidence is just as high, possibly higher on occasions, too high perhaps. But it's part of explaining to the general public what the difference is. If you just say Welsh medium and English medium, they think they are equivalent, and you come out talking Welsh from one, you're talking English from the other. It's not like that at all, because of that, we all know that, but we need to make sure that the public know that, and so it becomes easier and easier to explain, and less heat generated in the process. There's going to be impacts, yeah, it's good news for Llanfairpwllgwyngyllgogerynion, and there are possibilities. It could we need to consider a lot of things. You referred to the difference between the provision in a dual stream school and the provision in a bilingual outcome Welsh medium school. And that would be, it is massive. A lot of the problems we have is, as parents, you can send your child to a dual stream school and you choose the Welsh medium stream, and every now and again you hear, oh, they're not having that lesson in Welsh. Oh, they're not having this subject in Welsh. Oh, this subject is not available. And it's not communicated to the parents. It is a serious problem. I think we do need to insist that schools provide an audit of what lessons their child, having been put into the Welsh medium stream, what lessons they are going to receive through the medium of Welsh. This is what's creating Yscol Carainion as a Welsh medium school simplifies and eliminates the problem. It's clear cut what the expectations of that school are. Other dual streams, or obviously in Maldwyn we've got Llanfairpwllgwyngyllgogerynion and Llanidloes, and there's no incentive for school managements to explain clearly to parents what level of Welsh medium education is going to be provided by that school. And in both cases, we need to see clarity, and that parents are informed in the summer term before they start that year 7, or in the summer term before they start in year 8, etc. What lessons they can expect to receive through the medium of Welsh. And if that was made more clear, it would have a significant impact on the efforts made in those schools to provide the lessons through the medium of Welsh. There is an element. I don't want to be unkind. I've got to be careful what I try to pick the word, but yn Gymraeg, twy llodrus. You haven't got a translator, so you're not going to. Slightly, a slight deception goes on. Kids are persuaded, or parents generally and families are persuaded to send their children to that school because they will learn Welsh. I've seen it happen in primary schools time and time again, and then it doesn't happen once they get there, because the head teachers are doing their best to run the schools. They want the school to be successful. Success means bums on seats, more budget, but it's a disaster for Welsh medium confidence in the children. So, in order to get somebody some answers, perhaps, can you tell us how many children have been persuaded to leave Ysgol Dafydd Llwyd to go to Llanidloes rather than the Llanfair Cyreinion, as was intended, where they would get a more all-round Welsh medium education?
Right. Before we move on to that answer, and I'm going to come back to you, but Gareth has a similar point to what you've previously made.
Champion.
I'd be interested to see if he's challenging you or agreeing with you.
Chairman, I find myself in the very uncomfortable position of agreeing with Councillor Bray. So, no, if we all look at page 15 and 14, we've got the figures in the options appraisals about the numbers within the catchment area. And carrying on from what Councillor Bryn was saying there about Dafydd Llwyd, the numbers there are very healthy and very good. However, those numbers don't come over to Cyreinion currently. They're a lot better than what they've previously been, with a lot of hard PR work going on, but they're nowhere near what they potentially could be. And it frustrates me the number of learners, as Brynna says, who have enjoyed a primary school education for the medium of Welsh, enter year 7 in the Welsh language stream, and very soon, for various reasons, decide to switch to the English stream. Can I ask the portfolio holder and Marianne, is there a plan to revisit the catchment areas and align possibly Cyreinion as more of the catchment area solely for Dafydd Llwyd for that area? And similar to what Bryn just asked, I've been asking now for probably 3, 4, 5 months for the figures of the number of children who enter Welsh medium dual stream in certain schools in year 7, and who by year 9, let alone by the time they sit their GCSEs, have left Welsh medium education.
Okay, similarity in the questions. Bryn, I want you to ask your question again in relation to Dafydd Llwyd, and Marianne and Councillor Pete can pick up on both comments then.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. What directly related to Dafydd Llwyd? How many? What difference would it make to the numbers at Llanfair, Ysgol Bro Cyreinion, I should say, if all children from Dafydd Llwyd were transferred to Bro Cyreinion? And the other question is, can the Education Authority ensure that we have an audit of the number of lessons, or specifically which lessons are provided through, and not just lessons, resources are provided through the medium of Welsh by the bilingual outcome streams in the dual stream schools?
Marianne, apologies. I've allowed so much information to come over to yourself, but please do your best, and bearing in mind you've got Councillor Pete waiting in the wings.
Yeah, okay. I know we've got Emma and Georgie in the hands as well, so whether they want to in.
I'll pick up on a few things, and then Marianne will pick up on some of the more detail and factual. In answer to the catchments, we went through this, and I went through this with Amrin when she was still an officer here rather than with the partnership. The reason we didn't place Dafydd Llwyd solely into Llanfair Cyreinion at that review was because technically, and I know the offering was different, technically both schools were of the same language category. So because of the distances involved and the nature of the catchment for David-Lloyd, we couldn't differentiate. This changes that position, and if this goes through as a statutory change, then obviously we would be revisiting the catchments in light of that. There may be a year or two gap because of the nature of the catchment consultation. It will just depend on when it falls, when this decision falls within the cycle. But obviously, if this school is of a different language category or moving to a different language category, that will have a material impact on the catchment process. I hope that gives some reassurance. Councillor Bryn picked up on a very important issue, and that is around ensuring that the provision of Welsh medium education and the offering of Welsh medium education is Welsh medium education. And what this does is actually open up some opportunities. It opens up the opportunities of partnerships between schools that have a Welsh medium offering to work together and share workforce, so that you may have, instead of one governing body employing a teacher in geography, but then having them cover history, it enables them to work in partnerships so that a teacher is on one school for half the time and on another half the time, so that offering across the board broadens. So that is one key area. The other key area in this proposal is that it allows us to have a fully bilingual workforce, rather than having a mix and match, which invariably does happen in some of our dual stream schools. The main issue, though, is having that workforce, and the workforce is spread thinly. The West Strand on workforce development is a key issue that we've got to address, and we've got to address it across all phases. The final thing around this is this proposal will strengthen our Welsh medium offer across the northern half of the county, because one of the things that you do hear from parents is that we would consider Welsh medium for our child at primary, but there is no transition. There is no offering at GCSE through Welsh medium, and we don't want them to be disadvantaged by having to shift into an English medium education delivered through the medium of English when they get to secondary level. And it's that we've heard on a number of occasions around the transition from primary to secondary. So there is a lot to be hopeful for here, but there is still a lot of work to be done. So that, I think that covers the broader issues. I'll pass to Marianne to pick up the specific and data related questions that came from both of the councillors.
Okay, in terms of your question, Bryn, around the number, or was it Gareth, the number of pupils transferring out of David-Lloyd, was that the question, if you remind me?
Yeah, the number of pupils who leave David-Lloyd enter a dual stream education in year 7, and by the time year 9 or even GCSEs, they've gone into the English stream.
Okay, I don't have the figures to date around David-Lloyd. We do have them, but I haven't got them to hand, right? So, but David-Lloyd has, for a number of years, been 100% transfer from David-Lloyd to Corinion. But we know that now there's been a change over the last few years where the pupils of David-Lloyd are going to a number of alternative schools, including Llanidloes, Newtown High School, and others. We know Ysgol Gymraeg Trallwng as well. We have pupils transferring to Bro Corinion, but we also have a few transferring to Welsh Rural High School. We'll get that information for you, well, for Cabinet anyway, by next week, if that helps. But I think it just shows you, unless there is clear clear, transparent progression routes for parents, then into provision, to Welsh medium, designated Welsh medium provision, then that pattern will continue. And what we need for Bro-Cyrenion to be successful is to maximise the number of pupils transferring to Bro-Cyrenion as the provider of choice. And just looking at the figures, within those feeder schools that you have in Bro-Cyrenion, currently in the primary sector, there are 671 children. 105 of those are in English medium. So we have nearly, well, 566 pupils choosing Welsh medium primary in those schools that feed Bro-Cyrenion. So we need to aim to build this school to have that sustainability. And I think those numbers are there, but we need all of them.
Thank you, Marianne. I'll come back to you, Bryn. Emma wants to make a comment, and I've also got Georgie waiting in the background as well. So we'll take them too, because I think Emma wants to make a comment on Welsh medium education.
Chair committee. For me, there are a few things that I'd like to pick up, as well as comments that we've received from the Welsh Medium Education Forum. The first, just following on from the discussion that you've just had, is that, you know, really the proposal is simply implementing the part of the Welsh Education Strategic Plan that has already been committed to by this local authority. And I think the important aspect for us is the richness that the bilingual offer offers our children, in that they will come out of the school both speaking English and Welsh, not one or t'other. And I think we've got a duty as an organisation to make sure that this is successful, should it be agreed and taken forward, so that we do not collectively let down another cohort of children who are currently unable to access that secondary provision, in particular through that bilingual offer that we should be able to provide across the full curriculum, not one or two or three subjects, but across the full curriculum. And I think that's a very important point for all of us. The transport discussion that was had earlier around the English and Welsh, it's fair to say that when that transport policy was considered, consulted on and initially implemented, the English and Welsh provision across the county was not equitable. And it still isn't, if we're completely honest, hence why we're on this journey of implementing the Welsh Education Strategic Plan. And that policy that was put in place was deliberate to try and help access the bilingual offer that is available at less establishments across the county. As we move forward with our transformation, and it was a commitment that was given right at the point, at the outset actually, of the last review and approval of the policy, we agreed that we would need to continually review the transport policy as we move forward with the transformation proposals, because that gap in terms of equitable provision should close if we're successful in implementing the Welsh Education Strategic Plan that we have all committed to. So we've always said we will review, and I think the committee needs to hear a commitment from us that we will honour that, and absolutely will take that forward, noting that that's not in Marianne, Lynette or Georgie's team. It's actually in another department of the organisation. Nevertheless, it's appropriate that we give that commitment. In respect of the Welsh Medium Education Forum, they met on the 18th of September. I'm very conscious that that was only the beginning of this week, Chair and Committee, and you may not have had time to consider the comments that have been provided by that forum. And therefore, I just want to refer to the note that we've received from the forum, if I may, because I think you should consider that when formulating any further questioning, and maybe even recommendations from this committee to Cabinet to consider. So that members of the Welsh Education Forum are very supportive of the proposal to change Ysgol Bro-Crynion's language medium. This is long overdue development, which has been discussed for several years and will ensure access to a full Welsh medium secondary education for pupils in this part of Powys, enabling the council to meet one of the main objectives of its WESP. This development would provide a clear pathway through Welsh medium education for pupils in the area, from nursery through to secondary and post-16 provision. Welsh medium preschool provision is already available at the Cylch Meichen, and the Cylch T a V is also available for parents and young children. The forum would expect this to lead to an overall growth in numbers choosing Welsh medium education in the area, and a growth in the numbers continuing to receive Welsh medium education when transferring to secondary phase in particular. The forum supports the proposal to start introducing the change in the language medium in the primary and secondary phases at the same time, which would enable the school to move along the continuum more quickly. This will ensure that access to a complete Welsh medium secondary education can be provided earlier than if the proposal was only introduced in the primary phase. Some points were suggested that will need to be considered as the process moves forward. More information is needed about the late immersion support that will be available to enable pupils currently receiving English medium education transfer to Welsh medium education. Although the proposal is to change the language medium provision from September 2025, Welsh medium education should be promoted in the area in the lead up to that, and encourage pupils to choose Welsh medium education at school from September 2024. Partners that are members of the forum can support with this. It will be important to ensure strong relationships with other Welsh medium schools in the area, particularly Ysgol Dafydd Lloyd and Ysgol Gymraeg y Welsh Bull, to ensure that they are part of the school's family from the outset, to ensure that they feel part of this development, and to encourage pupils from these to ensure they feel part of this, from these schools to transfer to secondary provision at Ysgol Bro Corinion. The school will need to revisit the transport policy the council will need to revisit the transport policy to support this development, to ensure that the policy encourages access to full Welsh medium provision. It will be necessary to work with parents to ensure that there's support for the development, particularly parents who hope there would be a secondary development in the Severn Valley area. Collaboration between Ysgol Bro Corinion and Ysgol Bro Hyddgen should be encouraged to enable both schools to expand the opportunities for pupils and to overcome difficulties with recruitment. And any capital investment required to ensure the school's success will need to be considered when preparing the Council's Strategic Outline Programme, a SOP, for the Welsh Government's 9-year Sustainable Communities for Learning Investment Programme, which will need to be prepared over the coming months. And if I may, Chair, I think those are really helpful comments in terms of the suggested way forward, that the process, and also that extended offer of assistance to make the proposal as successful as possible, should we be in a position whereby we implement the preferred way forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Emma. Thanks for bringing that information to the meeting. I certainly think it helps. I'm going to Georgie next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just really to say regarding, I think it was Councillor Bryn talked about what the provision is out there and what that looks like in schools right through from year 7 through. And this also links to a request that was made at a previous scrutiny linking to the breadth of offer as well in both the medium of English and the medium of Welsh. So it's a piece of work that we've just begun, looking at what subjects are being delivered across all of our secondary schools, including allocation of hours, the language of delivery, as well as the workforce that's there delivering that as well. So we have begun that work. It is going to take a little bit of time to gather that information from schools. And of course, it'll be following the situation we're in with gathering evidence for our JICFA at the moment. But I just want to say that we're really aware of the resilience within the workforce, and particularly the risk at times that is with the delivery of Welsh medium subjects as well. And that opportunity to provide that collaboration across the schools would really help with building that resilience within the system. And it's something that we've certainly seen through the post-16 offer, and now we're looking at Key Stage 4 as well, but we're also just generally looking across the piece regarding what we offer for all children in the secondary sector at the moment. So I just wanted to sort of share that with Scrutiny, because I know it had been part of a previous request as well, and it hasn't not been remembered. It's just we're trying to manage it on top of everything at the moment.
Thank you, Georgie. That information is certainly relevant as well. There is a question in the chat. I'm happy for somebody to give that answer in the chat if they so wish, but we have got people lining up to speak, so that's why I suggested that. It's a question from Councillor Gareth. Will the school have to close and then reopens with teachers having to reapply for their jobs? If you want to pick that up in the chat or come in on that, but please do. I'm going back to Councillor Bryn now, please.
Yeah. When the transport policy gets altered, it will presumably recognise that there's a difference in experience between the Welsh bilingual outcome Welsh medium education in a dual stream school as compared to a Welsh medium stream school, and that's important. That will theoretically open the door for transport from Rhiwlas and Llangurig all the way to Llanfaircyfeinion, to give those kids that fair experience. Now, which is great, but obviously it's not great. It's so great for all the time spent on the bus, on the transport, and obviously it won't attract all children from, say, Llanrhaeadr and Penabon Fawr and the same at the other end of the county, because they will have to pass a more convenient local English medium school, or settle for the bilingual option provided by either Llanfachlin or Llanidloes, which will obviously be weakened if some of the cohort are going forwards to Llanfachrinion. So it's incredibly important that the education provision through the Welsh medium is improved radically in, say, Llanfachlin and Llanidloes. And what would help massively, well, possibly one way of doing this is, as you say, I've said before, that for the number of children we have currently in Welsh medium secondary education, there are probably sufficient teachers in the county, just they're spread between 3 schools. And so you were talking about cooperation between schools. How do you envisage that cooperation happening? Will it be the potential of central contracts so that they are Powys, Welsh medium, North Powys Welsh medium school employs them, but it's on 3 sites, and obviously the use of technology enables a lot of lessons could possibly happen online in the classroom, similarly to a hybrid sort of lessons like we're having now. So that's one direction. Do you see that? Do you see that happening? That's the first question. Whilst I try to remember what the second one was.
Sure. Can I just reply to that, Councillor Bryn, if that's okay?
Please.
Yeah, I think it's just something we need to explore. In all honesty, we don't know the ins and outs of that. It's the detail that hopefully, if we gather this detail, then we can look at the expertise within the structures and schools across Powys as well. I mean, we are a leading LA around the use of the ESCOL model, like you said about the the hybrid model, and we are looking to explore using that at Key Stage 4 at the moment. But it's very early stages, in all honesty, with that, to be honest.
Yeah, and the other question is sustainability. How, with a good strong following wind, this Ysgol Bro Cranon will be set up as a bilingual outcome, Welsh medium for all. But there is a danger, especially if Llanfachlin develops its offer, Llanidloes develops its offer, that Llanfair could remain a small school and therefore difficult to sustain. Is it possible to give it a title such as North Montgomeryshire Welsh Medium Provision School and Gymraeg, obviously, so that it's and possibly for that school where there's a total focus on Welsh medium education to be responsible for the Welsh medium education in Llamerllyn and Llanidloes, so that they know that they're getting a fairer deal than they currently are, and obviously its responsibility will be geographically dissipated, if that's the word, or spread out. And so in other words, the future of Welsh medium and higher education is not constrained to Llanfair, and it needs to be in the medium term to long term future. It needs equally easy accessibility from Llangurig to Llansilin. That's the question. I don't want the establishment of this school to choke development in the rest of the county, because history tells us, and I've got experience in Wrexham and in Flintshire, where that's exactly what happens. One school provides the Welsh medium education for the county, and every other school anglicizes, and that's it. People rest on their laurels, and no further development happens. That would be disastrous for Welsh medium education, because not every at the current model, which I welcome, it does not make accessibility equal to English medium and Welsh medium schools.
I get that point, Bryn. You're suggesting it ticks a box.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Flintshire opened up a Ysgol Maes Gamron in 1961, and that's the only Welsh medium size school they've got now.
Okay, that's an interesting comment.
I'll come back on that and say I have more ambitions than just one Welsh medium school in this county.
Yeah.
This is a start point.
Yeah.
This is delivering on our commitment within the current West. Let's get this school up and running. Let's get this school successful, and let's build at the primary level so that there is demand around the county to warrant additional schools over and above what is in the current West.
I'm not going to come back to officers now. I think it's a point well made, and it just needs to be taken on board. I have expressed an opinion that I wanted to finish at 5:30. I want to finish pretty close to that. I've got Councillor Allen, I've got Councillor Gareth and Margaret. Please don't think I'm suggesting I don't want you to make comments, but I want to get round you all, and Bryn, a hand is still up, but I'm happy to come back to you if you wish to speak as well. Councillor Allen.
Okay, double quick time. I wrote down the word sustainability as well when Marianne said it. And Bryn said, given a fair wind, and Marianne said we need all the pupils. So I assume you will be considering changing the catchment of Ysgol Dafydd Llwyd now. Well, it's 2 miles closer to Llanfair anyway. But I assume you'll change the catchment of Ysgol Dafydd Llwyd to be wholly within Caraignon now, rather than being split between other schools. Of course, you will not prevent children who are closer to Llanidloes from travelling to Llanidloes. They've got that right to do so. However, there was a risk before. You're transporting children from the town of Drenewydd to Llanidloes, even though Llanfair was closer. So in order to make that school sustainable, that catchment has to be changed. Emma talked about letting down another cohort. It's great news for the children around Llanfair. Ysgol Caraignon is there for them. And Bryn was really eloquent. You can see why he's got a degree in physics when he's explaining everything. But, you know, there are communities around the whole of Powys that cohort after cohort will be let down for the foreseeable future. I understand, I hear the ambition from Councillor Roberts, but saying it is not good enough. It needs to be up here in the West, and the West can be updated at any time. You don't have to wait for the Welsh Government to say, oh, it's time to review your West. I'm pretty certain it can be updated at any time. And then back to that word again, sustainability. Councillor Roberts, we had a session on budget this morning, the challenges that face the council. And Marianne indicated that Kirainion possibly on you know, and many other schools, sorry, I shouldn't say Kirainion, but many schools across Powys are on that edge. Are they sustainable or not? What do you see as, Councillor Roberts, as the footprint of Powys High Schools across Powys? We have 13 sites at the moment. Are all those sites sustainable going forward? If not, it might blow all the work we've been doing this afternoon about around Llanfairpwll catchment and Llanfairpwll and any other catchment we're looking for in the future. What is sustainable in the future when you look at the footprint of those 13 high sites where secondary education takes place? Thank you.
Councillor Peterman, I'm going to ask you for comment. We've almost gone full circle and come back to the very first points that we made at the beginning of the meeting, but yeah, go on. Have a start.
Firstly, I will give you the same answer that I gave Councillor Gareth in respect to the catchments. The only reason that it's on a dual catchment at the moment is that the two schools are of the same education, same Welsh medium provision level. This will change that, and we will need to revisit the catchments. That's quite clear. But at the moment, they are still on the same level. We haven't moved this process forward. Let's get this over the line and the category changed, and then we'll revisit those issues. In respect of the wider school's footprint, we are looking at a number of issues across the council, as you rightly identify. The current policy still remains 13, but we are in the middle of a review of Welsh medium provision and looking at how that impacts upon the WESP and the wider section. That will result in changes to the use of schools in terms of where pupils go for English medium education. And until that shakes itself out, it is very difficult to say one or more sites may or may not close. We need to understand what is coming out of these changes, and also, and I remind you, the catchment review within Newtown, which may lead to changes within that catchment. So at the moment, no, I don't have any changes planned for the 13 provision, but there is always ongoing work to look at that, and the impacts of the current financial position may lead to changes in that. But if there are changes coming, it will need to be with cross-party working, because it will need to be something that will span several administrations. So we'll need comprehensive buy-in across the chamber, so that it is the settled view of the council, in the same way that the current transformation plan has largely transcended two different administrations.
Margaret?
Yeah, sorry, a transformation plan that the opposition last time tried to block, but that's possibly shouldn't be said. But you gave a little bit of a time frame for the capital investments. It would be sort of 10 years when we were talking about the Llanfairpwll catchment. You're saying there's work going on now, looking at the 13 sites and what's sustainable. Can you give us a time frame of when that work will be concluded?
At this stage, no, because we are in the middle of a significant amount of work to deliver the transformation proposals that you have here. And as you well know, if we overstretch our staff, we end up with burnout and proposals that have to get pulled because there is, or delayed because the staff cannot cope with them.
I almost got through today's meeting without any political comment. Almost. Margaret, I'm coming to you now. Margaret, are you still indicating? No, if not, I'm going to go to Councillor Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. I was heartened to hear what Emma said earlier about looking at the capital expenditure that's going to be needed in Kirainion, and that they're going to be looking at what is needed over the next few months, and I look forward to seeing what that actually equates to. It's good that it's recognised we've got to invest in this school to make it successful. And I'd just like to ask, has any consideration been given for kind of an awareness raising campaign aligned with this proposal that could demonstrate the benefits of bilingual education to parents? Like this, now we're trying to move this on, and it's at the moment it's just telling parents this is what's happening. But is there any possibility of getting a campaign off the ground where we've had previous learners within our county demonstrating how the Welsh language has benefited them in their careers, and it's something that they don't regret and would recommend to every learner within Powys?
Beth, I'm sure we'll expand on this, but what we are looking at very closely, and what I've asked officers to look at that has been delayed by the JICPA process, for those watching, a review of certain aspects of multi-agency working that is taking up a lot of officer time at the moment. I've asked officers to come forward with an engagement plan and an activity plan around the Eisteddfod to promote Welsh medium education, the benefits of Welsh medium education across the whole of North Powys, to take advantage of that time. And that very much will fit in with the awareness raising that you are talking about. But obviously, as this proposal moves forward, there will need to be specific targeted events within the catchment to help parents understand the opportunities that are available, not just for their children, but for them as well.
Margaret, I understand you dropped out of the call. If you want to make a comment now, I'm quite happy for you to come in now.
Sorry, I didn't drop out. Something happened with the computer. And yes, no, it was just briefly when you were talking about Llanidloes and the development of Welsh. I wanted to just quickly say that in the secondary school, I wanted to quickly say that it was, I remember when that started, and it started because parents from Trefegloes at the time had campaigned for children in primary level to come to Trefegloes who were at the bottom end of our side of Caersus. And they got transport for them to come to Trefegloes because of the Welsh, they wanted Welsh medium education in Trefegloes. And there was nothing in the high school. And Llanfair, a lot of them didn't want the children to travel on that road. And that's why there was no provision in the area. And John Hughes obviously was the head at the time in Llanidloes. And that's the way that unit, or the provision of more Welsh than that had been, started. There was nothing here. And I know, and that happened. So, you know, it did develop Welsh in this area that wasn't available. It may not be perfect now, I accept, but that's how it happened. There was nothing. And John Hughes developed it purely because of Trefegloes and the developments there.
Thank you for that endorsement, Margaret. And I think that's valid information to the meeting. Emma, you're looking to get in.
Yes, please, Chair. Just to confirm, I've put in the chat, just for a committee to be able to access now, a link to something called Destination Bilingual, which is the benefits of choosing a Welsh medium education link on our Powys County Council website. So we've got a lot of material already available that Councillor Gareth is seeking, and what we can do is give a commitment to promote that again and run the campaign again on our social media sites and make sure it's available to the schools and parents, etc. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to say there is quite a lot of information there already, and I'll speak to communications, or Marianne will speak to communications about promoting that once again.
Yeah, two quick questions. One was asked previously, it didn't get answered, and the secondary follow-up. The first question was, especially in light of promotion going to happen in Eisteddfod yr Urdd when it comes to Maivod next May, June, which will be a fantastic feather in our cap. I'm not sure if it's in the Llanbwllyn or Llanbed catchment, but we'll argue over that. But the question is about making sure that the secondary schools in dual stream secondary school provide information that is correct about the number of lessons and which lessons will be provided in the Welsh language when they get to that school. You know, in light of what Margaret's spoken about Llanidloes and obviously in Ysgol Llanbwllyn, can we have some indication that that will happen, and that information is published and provided to parents in advance of the school, the children entering that the next year of education, and with respect to the transfer policy, which will need to be amended, how soon can that happen? Is it like a 2 week? Can it happen at any time, or is it a 2-year cycle that we have to wait until the next time it comes around?
I really don't think it needs amending. It's, you know,
does to differentiate between a bilingual outcome Welsh medium school for all and a dual stream school.
No, it doesn't.
I am sitting over here.
Sorry, Chair.
Apologies.
Yeah, quite happy for you to have the debate, but through the chair if you like, or whatever. Yeah, is there some clarification on that for Bryn?
Shall I come in? Oh,
Go on, Marianne.
I'll do the transfer policy. Georgie, you can do the subject offer. In terms of the transfer policy, I think the plan should be to get the school established, the Broken Union Welsh Medium School established, and then the transfer policy will follow that. There is some national changes to the Learner Wales travel measure, I believe, on its way as well, which we would need to wait to understand what changes are being suggested there in order for us to amend any transfer policy anyway. So we'll wait and see. But I think first things first, let's establish the school and make sure that the transfer policy is aligned at that point. Georgie?
Thanks, Marianne. Just as well, we always have to work with statutory guidance around admissions consultation, etc., which does affect when anything around clusters, etc., needs to be changed, and they need to be aligned at the moment because that is 2 years in advance. I think that one works. In terms of the curriculum offer, we can capture that information and evidence, but normally schools start doing their timetabling, planning, curriculum offer, etc., sort of from April to July onwards. And also we need to be mindful that we do use external providers, and that's one of the things we need to explore around equity as well, and what that looks. So like the intention is to have all this information to hand probably within the next term and a bit, and then we can start helping schools to inform the timetabling, the option offer, and explore elements such as the ESCO if there's a subject that we know hasn't got enough children, for example, signed up in one school, that we could explore that as an opportunity across the county. But at the work we're doing at the moment is the baseline, in all honesty, of what the offer is at the moment.
Yeah, I'll give you one more opportunity, Brent, and then I'm going to conclude.
Yeah, fair enough. The capture, I guess we get that already, but I've never been told, never been informed as a parent what lessons my child is receiving through the medium of Welsh, and it's after the fact. It's too late by then. You can't query it because the timetables are set in stone. We need to be told when they are formulating the timetable, which is usually during the summer term, what lessons are going to be provided in Welsh the next term, so that it's in their heads that they are conscious of what they're doing, and they need to be honest to parents about what they are going to provide. Speaking personally, my own daughter's been in a class, a Welsh-speaking class with a Welsh-speaking teacher, and everything provided through the medium of English because they didn't want to prepare their own lessons, which is fundamental point of being trained as a teacher, and it's frustrating. It's happened more than one occasion. So, and in more than one school, people come to me telling me that. So, could it be done in advance? That's important.
I think. Yeah. Sorry, Councillor Brent. I think the first thing is that information currently sits with schools, not centrally. So that's what we need to gather. And I agree that then we need to work with schools to support the comms, because we've had those kind of decisions and discussions around if somebody's chosen a vocational offer that requires transport out of the school as well. So I think, you know, it is something we need to be working on with schools around comms regarding Key Stage 4 options and what that leads to and means. And we have gathered that as well in a pupil voice from our learners too. So that is a piece of work that we are doing. But in terms of the information, we only have the outcomes at Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5 at the moment. So we do need to gather that intel from individual schools to have the broader image of what's happening and what's being delivered through which subject, as well as which language as well.
Thank you, Georgie. I've got an observation, and I'm going to conclude with Councillor Gareth after, which is a bit appropriate in the circumstance. There's nothing in the documentation in relation to any forward capital expenditure. It appears to me that, and I'm sorry, I'm no knowledge of the school, so that expenditure may have happened in its development, but it's all through school. But it appears that you've got to make that school attractive as well, and that will be the challenge for Coranian, is to attract pupils to its school. I just wonder, in that future programme, is there some capital investment in bricks and mortar, or developing that into to any community outlet or anything like that?
Yeah. Yes, we will be submitting our new programme early spring. One of the criteria for the new Sustainable Communities for Learning programme from Welsh Government is the development of Welsh medium education. So that's a clear criteria. We know that Bro Coranion needs investment. And since it was established as an all-through school, there hasn't been major capital investment there. So, but we are in discussions at the moment. It would be something we would need to look at carefully, and of course we would want our flagship Welsh medium secondary provider to have best facilities. So that's something we will be looking at as we start to prepare our new programme.
Good. Councillor Gareth.
Thank you. Yeah, in conclusion, just want to say to everyone, communication around this is crucial. It has to be clear and comprehensive and timely. Again, coming at this, trying not to come at this from the governor's perspective, but I'm struggling. The school has been through a lot lately. The setting up of an all-through school has caused a lot of upheaval within the school. The tragic accident that was there as well. There's been a lot of pressure on the teachers, and we mustn't forget them in this process. And with that, I would really ask the portfolio and officers if you would be so good as to, if this gets approved next week, at the very earliest opportunity, come and meet with the governors.
Yes.
There's a strong will within the governors and within the town to work with you. We want to work with you, and reading all these documents here, I think it's achievable. So we've got to collaborate, and it's a two-way street, that is. So yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to conclude there. Obviously, we'll have some observations to make before next week. I think it's been a useful afternoon. It seems to have been a long afternoon, but I do thank officers and members for their contributions. I think there's been some really good questions, and more importantly, from a scrutiny point of view, some really good answers as well. Honest answers, and certainly given food for thought. So thank everybody for their contributions this afternoon, and we look forward to future proposals, and certainly we'll watch with interest next week's cabinet meeting and to see how things progress. So thank you very much, everybody, for their contributions, and those of you in the chamber, bit of a shock to us. A safe journey home, and those of you at home, enjoy your supper. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Chair. Bye all.
Okay.